One more time, good morning. Heck yeah. I am thrilled to be with each and every one of you humans today. We spent a lot of time planning for this event, and we never know who's going to show up. And I'm starting to see a little bit of standing room only. There's seats up the front, come on in. We are lucky to have the best research humans in the world, from sites, sponsors, and CROs, from 4 corners of the globe here in Atlanta, Georgia today. And I'm going to take the opportunity to welcome you, but also to pivot. Because for the last decade, Florence has focused on this notion of site digitization, or digitalization if you're the type of human that uses the word aluminium. Site digitization has been our bread and butter. We want to help sites all over the world move from paper, closed shared drives that are provisioned by IT, and manual processes to digital processes that are open to the whole ecosystem. And it's time for us to make a pivot. It's time for us to make a pivot right when we've reached new heights. As of today, we've now digitized 65,000 study sites around the world. That's cool as heck. We're giving back about 2.5 million hours of lost productivity to advancing cures to help your family and mine. And so that's very satisfying. So why pivot from site digitization at this moment when we've reached our peak, not only in terms of coverage, but also in terms of how the industry is recognizing the impact that Florence can deliver. So those 65,000 study sites are supporting over 600 sponsors that are running studies across the Florence platform in 90 countries. And every time a sponsor releases Florence optionally to a site, our adoption rate reaches 70%. So 7 out of 10 sites say yes to adopting technology, even though in 2025 we're at a time when the technology options for sites are more crowded than ever before. And we feel very fortunate to be recognized in creating this scale through ease of use. That's the hallmark of what we try to build, and the 100+ Florentians that you see here in Atlanta today do every day when they wake up. And we feel lucky to be recognized by Gartner G2 for the 3rd year in a row as the #1 clinical research application as voted by users. And that's an awesome accomplishment. That's worth a round of applause too. So we're pivoting from site digitization right as our network reaches scale and right as we have some of the greatest evidence for the economic impact that we're making for life science and for clinical trials. That economic impact can be measured in expedited startup, in reduced risk, and in increased capacity. And from an expedited startup standpoint, some of our thorniest studies, we've been able to reduce study startup by 70%, meaning taking it from months at some of the longer-toothed academic medical centers to weeks. And for some of our customers, we've reached 51% improvements in the quality of the documentation for the entire study. That means taking the pass rate as documents flow back from sites into the eTMF from only 6 out of 10 documents to 9 out of 10 documents. That sort of 50% increase in throughput not only reduces the work that the teams have to do on the study, but also allows the assurance of approval when it comes time to inspect the documents by the agencies to be much higher. But it's not all about speed and quality. We live in an era where study budgets are being more scrutinized than ever before, and as a result, it has to make dollars and cents. And today, at the end of October 2025, we've now delivered $141 million of savings to all of our Florence customers. This is the last applause bit for now. Woo! So we feel lucky to earn our keep. So why are we pivoting if we're earning our keep now, if we've reached critical mass in terms of our footprint? We're pivoting because we believe we can do more together. And I want to let you in on the story of how we're going to be able to do more together in the second half of the 2020s. That story starts with both ends of the clinical research spectrum. It starts both with sites and with sponsors, And it includes the work that these two sets of teams do. Includes the works that these two teams do. There we go. That is not only endpoint data, which is a lot of what we talk about in clinical research. When they took the pill, did the blood pressure go up or go down? But it turns out that endpoint data is a fraction of the data and the workflow energy that gets consumed during the production of a study. In fact, if you compare the volume of data in a TMF, where all the documents are collected that prove the efficacy of that study, to the volume in an EDC, it's about 20 times. And so while the EDC is the heart in carrying data from sites back to sponsors, the everything else is the stuff that takes the most time and produces the highest volume of data, and it turns out that where the work lies. So as we pivot from site digitization to something more, we want to focus on helping where the work lies and where the work gets done. So why pivot now? What's missing? Well, we did some thinking across the course of this year, and we discovered that the most critical software applications in research had been built with a bias either for site value or a bias for sponsor value. So on the site value side, it's all the acronyms you'd expect that sites use. Yes, the EMR at the practice, but other things like IRB workflow solutions, site CTMSs, invoicing ERP solutions. And there's also been a cadre of applications built for the sponsor side of the business. EDC, ePro, eTMF, RBQM, those acronyms that you've come to know as well. But what is there where sites and sponsors can work together, where there isn't bias, where there's a notion of even-handed collaboration between these two key stakeholders in getting clinical research done and getting new drugs to patients? What's missing is a core tool set that not only creates visibility for both sides, but lets the work get done at the same place it gets consumed, eliminating double work between doing the work in one place and submitting the work in some other place, allowing the creation and the consumption to happen in the same spot, and we're the right humans to do it. Florence is in a lucky place right now as we enter the second half of the 2020s. Because at the first time in history, we have a mandate based on the size of our footprint, that 65,000 study sites. And that's the shape of our curve. We have this nice linear up and to the right march, and so we're not letting up anytime soon. Yeah, I said we're pivoting from site digitization. It's only because we have more to do. We've got this on rails. What's new now is the shape of this curve. Because of the size of our site footprint and some of the world's most important sponsors and CROs who have bet on us, the number of protocols in our tool is approaching 40,000 protocols. So we have the recipes and the mandates for 40,000 studies. And so we're starting to begin to help in an even way on the sponsor side as well. And so I'm pleased to announce the trial operations platform from Florence. This is the first solution that can cascade work from the beginning of the study life cycle to the end in a balanced way, answering that question mark statement. Where's the infrastructure for shared work between sites and sponsors? And I'm going to invite a few folks onto stage in a minute to walk you through some of the first modules that are available for this platform. And in fact, every module you see on the slide is available today, but we're releasing a couple of them today in the 3 workflows, and I want to show them to you. First is a new site experience layer. So if you're a site that's accustomed to using our e-binders or e-consent solution, either because you acquired it to use across all your studies, or it was distributed to you by a sponsor or CRO, you're going to have a new way of interfacing with feasibility, e-binders, and e-consent. Second, we'll hear from a brand new team building site selection and site feasibility products. This takes the redundant work out of filling out yet another feasibility survey and uses AI to complete those surveys with a human in the loop. And lastly, you'll hear about a brand new sponsor experience, what we refer to as SiteLink 2, that manages study startup, doc exchange, and remote monitoring for sponsors so that they can help support workflows in a balanced, shared way with sites all over the world. We're going to show some real-time demos of these technologies, But before we do, I want to mention two things. One is, this is all in conjunction with an open ecosystem. You'll hear a little bit later from Anthony Costello of Medidata. You'll hear from Andy Corts of OneOncology about how an open ecosystem works in conjunction with some of these bubbles that I was putting up on the slides right here. An open ecosystem is important for how you get work done and how we can be your ally so that in supporting the tools that you've chosen already as best practice solutions. The other thing I want to do before we show some live demos is invite Chief Clinical Trial Officer Gregor to the stage to give you some context about what's going in the market as we roll out the site operations platform. Round of applause for Catherine.
Working? Great. I always assume that round of applause is because I made it up the stairs without falling in these shoes. So thank you for supporting me in my decisions. So Ryan likes to bring me up here to give a little bit of color to the industry and talk about what's happening and why we feel that the solutions that we're developing are going to really fit with the needs of the industry today. Before I launch into that, though, I want to take a second and give a quick shout out to our community. So Ryan showed a screenshot of our community of over 65,000 study site pairs. And some of those people are in this room today, and they do a lot of extra work outside of their day-to-day of taking care of patients. They do things to help advance the thought leadership. So I'd like to give a round of applause to the members of the Site Enablement League. If you're here today, thank you for your time. And additionally, we just launched our first user community. So our users are being branded together to talk and share best practices about how they can get better together. And I'd like to give a quick shout out to our user community ambassadors who are in the room today. So thank you for your time. Okay, now on to the heavy stuff. So usually I come up here and I start with a study or a story of doom and gloom. But today I get to start with the good news. Study starts are on the rise. Last year I stood up here and I talked about we were starting to see a downward trend in the number of studies starting in the market. This year we've seen that start to correct itself. Studies are increasingly starting at a faster pace, and we're seeing a higher volume of studies, which is indicative that the market is rebounding, which is great. It's great for us, it's great for patients. But, as with most of my stats, there's a caveat. As we're starting to see the volume increase, the things that have always been there are also increasing, that friction, that inertia in the system. So we have increasing complexity. Protocols are becoming still increasingly complex as the therapies that we're developing are becoming more complex. That means that there's higher data points, more clinical burden, and it takes longer and more effort to get studies done. Additionally, we see an emphasis on broader site and participants, so we need to pick different sites. We know that now. We can't go to the same centers over and over and over again. So we have to find the right centers. We also have to find the right patients and make sure that our patients are representative, or our participants are representative of the patients that we intend to treat post-approval, which means that we need to take more time to think through who those participant mix is. And additionally, I don't know how many of you got really excited when you heard about ICH E6R3. Where are my reg nerds? Hands? Okay, seriously. That's fine. I'm the only reg nerd. I'll own it. This is a big hand down. It was adopted by the FDA, I believe, in September, so we are now working through it. And the biggest thing about ICH R6 is that it is putting an emphasis on data flow and technology and how those systems work together, because the agencies are recognizing that the future is going to be digital. And in order for us to make that happen, we have to be thoughtful about how we use those systems to set up and run our data. So we've got some complexity in the market, and this complexity leads to inertia. So we know that clinical trials, even though we work in a space that is constantly evolving both in therapy and indication, we as an industry are some of the slowest people to change. But we're slow for a reason, right? We're usually trying to mitigate risk. We're trying to make sure that what we do is not going to jeopardize the true outcome of where we want to get to, which is drug approval. But because of that hesitancy, our ability to pivot is starting to be challenged. And it's being challenged at a time when change is happening faster. Technology is evolving, AI is evolving, science is evolving quicker than we're able to keep up with. And what that means is that even though we've seen an increase in study starts, we've also seen a slowdown in the time it takes to get those studies completed. Despite the massive advancement of technology in the last 10 years, we still see that studies are 30% slower than they were in 2015. right? So we've thrown so many things in it that we can't move fast enough, and we're actually making our timelines longer. Additionally, we found that more studies fail due to execution error than to safety or efficacy issues. So this was a stat that was quoted by Dr. Califf at a City presentation earlier this year, that 30% of studies actually fail due to execution error versus 10% of safety and efficacy. So that means that we can't get timelines, we can't get studies done on time, or we have data errors because there's operational complexity that goes with managing these trials. So there's inertia. And our inability to pivot is coming with a price. It comes with a price for both the sites in the room and our pharma partners in the room. We now know that 90% of new sites fail within the first 5 years, that they are not able to sustain their business, and 1 out of 5 drugs fails to recover the cost of R&D. So they are lacking commercial success. At the end of the day, research, while driven on mission, is funded by economics. And if we can't change how we operate and make better economics, we're not going to be able to meet our mission. So it comes to the price. We have fewer drugs being successful and fewer sites making it. And the end result for all of that at the end of the day is that participants are getting left behind. Because if there's not sites to reach them, if there's not drugs to treat them, they have no choice but to stand and wait. 70% of US counties have no cancer treatment trials available to them. 9 out of 10 rare diseases have no treatment option. This is untenable. And in order for us to change these statistics, we have to change how we operate. So we today at an industry are at a turning point. We can't outpace challenges without rethinking how we collaborate. So I used to work at a site. I spent the majority of my times at sites, and sometimes it always felt like I was going head-to-head with the sponsor. And I'm sure sponsors and CROs in the room, you feel the same way. Like sometimes you're going head-to-head with sites. We have to reframe that and really focus on where we meet together to collaborate, to produce shared workflows and shared value. So we have to move beyond digitization and really think about where we come together and how we collaborate both in terms of work and technology. Because at the end of the day, you can't manage what you can't see. And if all we're looking at is EDC and patient data, we can't see where the operational issues are occurring. So most disruptions start with operational breakdown, right? You saw that statistic. So in order to fix that, we have to have better connections and better visibility into the operations that go around that patient data collection. It's not just about the EDC. It has to talk about what it takes to get a study started, what it takes to recruit a patient, what it takes to screen and consent that patient, and eventually what it takes to manage that patient's data. So by creating systems that work together in an open ecosystem, we're able to create real-time visibility into both site performance and patient progress. We're able to create early identification of risks before they become issues. Wouldn't it be great if we could see the signal that something was going to go wrong before it happened, much less before it happened 10 times? And we want to make data-driven decisions. So don't go on feeling, go on data. And we want to empower both sites and sponsors to have visibility into that data so that they can tell their story in a way that is meaningful to them. That's how you get to true end-to-end oversight. So this is our liftoff moment, right? We're changing our ship. We can't be the Titanic anymore. We need to be a rocket ship. We need to go faster. Real innovation means reimagining how we collaborate and how we accelerate together. And transformation starts when workflows connect to tell the full story of what is happening on a trial. So today we want to talk about a new story. We want to talk about a story that moves from friction to performance, from limitations to leverage, and from uncertainty to full visibility into every trial in the world. And because of that, I'm pleased to introduce the Life Sciences first trial operations platform and the first 3 key workflows that we're going to put out there to help you go faster, reduce your risk, and increase your capacity. And with that, I believe we have a video.
At Florence, we're building one Florence trial operations platform where sites and sponsors collaborate. Today, there's a gap. Sponsors spend too many resources identifying the right sites. Sites lack clarity and spend too much time finding the right information. Starting a study takes too long, and tracking progress is difficult. That's why Florence is introducing 3 new products and workflows. With Site Navigator, sponsors can quickly identify right sites and perform AI-assisted feasibility. A unified site experience to help sites be in sync, so every document, task, and action flows effortlessly. And SiteLink automates readiness with startup, document exchange, and remote monitoring. Together, we work faster and smarter to advance research.
Wow, that was cool. Good morning and welcome to Research Revolution 2025. My name is Hanal Shah. I'm the product manager for site identification and feasibility on the sponsor experience team here at Florence. Today, I'm going to walk you through the site identification and feasibility that is designed for sponsors and CRO, that is the first few workflows of the Florence trial operations platform. Every clinical trial begins with one critical question from the sponsor. Which sites will bring this study to life? For decades, that question has meant months of searching, repetitive surveys, countless follow-ups, limited visibility. Sponsors spend millions trying to find the right site partners, and sites spend days trying to repeatedly answering the same surveys again and again. You know what we call that? We call that a problem. So Florence is taking the first step to change that forever. So here, we would introduce you to the Site Navigator. Here in the site identification, you have a global site directory which houses almost over 250,000 site profiles. And it also houses around 500,000 investigator profiles. Now, you may be asking, it's too difficult to look at all of this, so you can filter. You can use our filter for different regions, countries, and states. To drill more down, you can also explore sites by their experience, like therapeutic area, disease focus, and to find the right investigator, you can put on filters for therapeutic area of an investigator, as well as their condition and disease experience. The results comes instantaneously. Now, as you see here, you see this verification badge. This verification badge gives sponsors and CROs a confidence because this profile is directly verified through sites, and it connects directly with our site experience. In the profile, you see this investigator profiles, which gives you more details on their specialties, their therapeutic area experience, and if they have any regulatory action on them. So you de-risk your selection. In the coming soon, we will also give insights into a study history, capabilities, and performance. Now, to show you more for the feasibility, what you can do is, let's just imagine, fast forward a little bit, you have a list of the sites and you would like to send out a feasibility. We just want to simplify the workflow of a feasibility to a more structured web form to begin with. Here, imagine you have selected a few of the sites that you think it's potential. You can go into our feasibility module. Right here, you can access multiple feasibility forms if you already have so. Or you can begin by using our Flowbot. Think of it as an intern or a companion that you have. You can simply upload your existing feasibility forms, and our AI will gonna extract the questions and response choices to create a draft feasibility. Now, we believe in AI-assisted feasibility. That means human is always the one who will make a decision. So you have an access to edit, add more questions, create a draft, finalize it, and send it to your multiple teams who has to review, and then send it to the sites. At the end of the day, you are making a decision on finalizing this form. Soon enough, we will also release our protocol and protocol synopsis document that you can upload on top of it, which will drive your feasibility draft more accurate and give you more results on top of it. Now, fast forward a little bit. Imagine you have sent it to the sites. Now, how, as a sponsor and CRO, I keep a track of it? It gets difficult for us to keep a track of it. The sites receive it in the email, but for a sponsor, how will I track the different responses, the sites are on the different stages, if they have rejected to participate in this trial, or if they would like to participate in this trial? So for that, you can live track for each of your feasibility forms at what stage they are. You can see what each site where, if they have either submitted it, if they have overdue this form, or if they have rejected to participate in the trial. Now imagine if the site has completed and you would like to view some of their responses, you can simply click onto the view response and you can get insights into what they have submitted. You can download this further to use or take it into a different platform that you may have, or you can simply transfer it to our connected flows, which is SiteLink, and to our further study startup platforms. Now to show you guys, you may be asking how all of this gets connected. This is powered through our Florence operational platform, but also it is enhanced through our strategic partnership with Sightline. It directly connects with our site experience, and it also connects with our sponsor experience. So to show you further on how it connects to our site experience, please welcome on stage Mike Wong.
Hello, mic check, there we go. Hello and good morning, everybody. Welcome to Research Revolution. My name is Mike Wong, and I'm your product manager here at Florence on the site experience side. Thank you, Hanno, for that wonderful handoff. Today, I'm gonna go over your site profile and your site feasibility workflows as part of our new trial operational workflow platform. So let's talk about your site profile. Now, it's great if Hanno knows me and my site and all of my strengths and selects me for his next trial. But what about the sponsors and sites out there that don't really have that connection? We really want to enable you, the site, to manage your online profile, to not just make sure that it's up to date, but to make sure you truly shine, to make sure you have all your site information, your capabilities, and your latest trials that you're working on, to make sure that when they see your profile, they can make a best choice and select you for their next trial. Really putting you in the driver's seat and control exactly how you want to be seen, searched, and selected. So let's see how we make that work. I'd like to formally introduce you to our site experience dashboard, your one-stop shop for everything. As soon as you log in, we'll prompt you to verify your site information. Let's see how this works. When you log in, you'll see your site profile. Everything we know at Florence know about your sites, along with the global trial and site data with our partners at Sightline, we're bringing all that information to you in this workflow. So you can review all the information, make sure everything is accurate, up to date, update your latest site capabilities, and ensure that everything is accurate. Once you verify your site information, we'll move on to your contact, making sure that the sponsors reach the right person within your organization. And of course, last but not least, we'll ensure that you get to update all of your site personnel to make sure sponsors and CROs see exactly who they'll be working with at your site. Once that verification process is done, you'll receive a green check mark, as Hanno mentioned. Much like a lot of social platforms out there where they can see a green check mark to see that you're a verified site, that your data is accurate and up to date. This builds trust, so they can see that, okay, you're active and ready to be selected for their next trial. Sponsors can see this and coupled with their data about your site and make the best informed decision for their next trial. So what happens after you verify your profile? We dropped you in here to our new dashboard. Based on your user roles, permissions, and assignments within your organization, you can see all the data right here on your dashboard. So you can get started on your day easily and quickly. You'll be able to see all the data based on your organization, your study, or your sites, however you see fit and however you want to go about your day. Once you bring up all that information, we'll show you all the tasks related to your sites and your studies and the latest activities, so you can be able to prioritize your day and know what you have to complete. We'll bring all the latest documents across all of your studies and your sites, so it's a one-stop shop. You have everything right at your fingertips across any of the Florence applications that you're subscribed to. And we'll extend this, of course, to our third-party applications, bringing contracts and budget tools and IRBs, so everything is in one place for you to start. So next, let's talk about site feasibility. Everybody just cringed a little, I know. I've talked to a lot of sites, and you've told me over and over again, you're just sick and tired of answering the same 50 to 100 questions, sometimes from the same sponsors. So what are we going to do for you? We have this brand new site feasibility workflow where you land in this dashboard and be able to see all the feasibility questionnaires that you have all in one place. But I'd like to turn your attention to our knowledge library. No more digging through emails and spreadsheets. We'll enable you to update and upload all of your feasibility questionnaires in this one place in the knowledge library. You'll be able to organize everything as you see fit based on your organization by therapeutic area, by PIs, or by sites. Again, up to you and how you want to organize that data. Once you upload all of your completed feasibility data and questionnaires, we'll see how Florence AI gets to work for you. Now, as Henno mentioned, he's identified my site. He's sent me a feasibility questionnaire. Let's go ahead and complete that on this platform. I can see we have our feasibility questionnaire here. So let's click into this and see what happens. You'll be able to select the exact knowledge library of the data you want to use to complete this feasibility questionnaire. Again, based on therapeutic area, the site, and the PI that you may be answering this for. Once you select that data and you use our AI suggested answers, we'll bring the most relevant and accurate information to you with the human in the loop to verify its accuracy and update as needed to complete this feasibility survey. Now, you're probably asking, what if the sponsor or CRO is not on our Florence platform? No problem. We have a way for you to upload any external questionnaire into this platform, whether it comes in a PDF, a Word doc, Excel, and we'll be able to parse out all those questions for you so you can still leverage your knowledge library to answer those questions. So as you can see, we've parsed out all the questions for you. You can load it into the app and use it as if the sponsor has sent you that questionnaire right on our platform. And now you're probably asking me, what if the sponsor or CRO has their own survey tool? No problem, we got you there too. We have a Chrome extension where on any survey platform, you can load up our Chrome extension and bring the answer right to you on any platform. Simply load up the survey tool, highlight the question, and search the knowledge library that you built for your sites with your data, and we'll bring the answer right to you. And once that is done, you can also add any new questions and answers right back into your knowledge library so you can use that data for your next feasibility survey. And if there's anything else I'm missing, please come see me at our Unplugged session and we'll talk about it. And there you have it, our site experience platform as part of our trial operation platform with site profile and feasibility. And we're just getting started. We would love to work with you to see what else we can bring to ensure your site profile truly shines. And with that, I would really like to bring up Ashley from Alcanza to talk about our process and our journey together working on this. Welcome, Ashley.
Good morning. I'm so glad to be here for iPhone 11,000 release. This is so exciting.
We've been working through this site profile and feasibility. Can you tell me a bit about how the site profile really brings value to your site?
We are so excited about this site profile being out there to reach sponsors we may not otherwise be able to reach. What better way to reach a bigger community than all of our information being out there instead of trying to play the telephone game and get a sponsor or get a study and you don't have the most up-to-date information, where we can just go right here and it is all there for everybody to view. And even if something changes, it's in real time and we have the ability to update that instead of having to wait for whatever life cycle that may be.
And now do you really want to share your feasibility challenges, workflows, efficiencies, and and how we are going to help with that.
The amount of feasibility reports we complete in a day is outstanding. It's absurd. And it's usually the same questions. We all answer the same questions. We still use Florence. Yes, it has not changed. The beauty of a feasibility report already being done for us is we get time back. And we are in the business of time because we are working hard to ensure that our loved ones and their loved ones get more time, whether it's 1 day, 1 week, or a couple of months. And with these feasibility reports already being completed, we get to give back even more time in the long run.
Awesome. Thank you, Ashley.
Thank you.
So with that, as we continue this journey on the trial operations platform, Henno has identified my site. He sent me a feasibility survey. I've completed that, and now my site is selected. So now I'd like to bring up Nish to talk about how Florence conducts trials.
Thank you, Ashley and Mike. As Mike very rightly said, we've seen how sites are identified, we've seen how feasibility is completed, and the right sites are selected. The next thing to do is see how our trials are conducted through the trial operations platform. Hi, everyone. I am Nish, and we'll be showing you exactly that and how we automate readiness for sponsors and CROs. For over a decade now, Florence has built a trusted and loved trial operations platform for sites. But as we continue to link our sponsors and sites closer together, we've heard one need consistently. We must reduce the burden around maintaining inspection readiness. And in this next chapter, we're doing exactly that. And doing so by streamlining site startup, de-risking document exchange, and accelerating oversight, while collecting data that informs your trial strategy. And the best part, we do this by connecting to where your sites are already conducting their workflows. So without further ado, let's jump right into it and show you what that looks like. In the time that it takes to prepare a startup packet for a single site, hundreds of sites can have their EISF ready, their system trainings routed, and their essential documents in place. An infrastructure that would take weeks to build is set up and live in just a few minutes. We are reducing risk to your trial timelines by streamlining the site startup process. And what makes this better? Integrations with your eClinical ecosystem. Throughout the trial operation, documents and metadata flow from external systems into Florence and to its connected sites. Staged and classified perfectly, ready for distribution per your trial and your document's needs, ensuring that you're de-risking the document exchange process and never missing a site. And as the trial evolves, any updates, any related communication, or recalls through one interface, a reimagined site inbox. A site inbox that is connected directly to the site's EISF. And as sites complete their work within their EISF, sponsor-ready documents don't have to stop there. Documents that meet your quality standards can be pushed straight to the eTMF through this one shared platform. This is document exchange, the way that it was always meant to be. And in a world of automated flow and connected platforms, the definition of oversight changes. Oversight is no longer about chasing documents and following up with sites. It's about giving you the ability to jump directly into the site with controlled and compliant access. One that is gated by training requirements, but enhancing the monitor experience by giving them access to documents straight at the source. The monitor experience is reimagined by giving them the ability to drill down and see exactly where in the document lifecycle their action is required. This is not business continuity in the guise of email threads. This is a tool for collaboration where sites do their best work, one that inspires action. And as the trial evolves, all of the operational data that we're collecting throughout it is informing how your studies are progressing and giving you a view of your study portfolio. What's better? We also get to dive straight into a specific study to view aggregated intelligence, see how sites are utilizing the EISF and the site document health metrics. We're fueling your trial and site strategy by providing you with real passive data that's collected over active workflows that your sites already use, own, and adopt. In this next chapter, we're accelerating cures by reducing friction, enhancing collaboration, and bringing research to life faster than ever before. Thank you, everyone. Welcome again to Research Revolution. If you're interested to dive into any of these workflows further, you can find us at our Product Unplugged sessions. And with that, I would now like to welcome back on stage Ryan to close with the future.
Let's have another, I don't need this because I got the other thing. How about now? Number 6. Let's have another round of applause, not yet, but I'm so thrilled for the contributions of Henel, Mike, Nish, and Ashley for advancing collaboration between sites and sponsors. Nicely done. And so it's been a true pleasure this morning, to gather all of you humans in one room. You could have been anywhere, but you chose to be here with us in rainy Atlanta. And it was also a true pleasure to introduce the trial operations platform that can cascade workflows, including study startup, feasibility, document exchange, to make sites and sponsors work better together. And the slides told the truth. Even though this is a big moment, even though this is a moment for us to pivot, there's one more thing. And true to Florence, because site teams are busy and sponsor teams are busy, we like to make one more thing, one less thing. And so I'm very excited to introduce Jim Wagner from TCN, who's built a career in building AI applications that create trust between parties, onto the stage. Jim? Oh, you got no hands for the high five.
Thank you so much for having me. I really do appreciate it. Many of you I've had an opportunity to interact with, and hopefully you know me as somewhat of an AI evangelizer. But the other thing about AI that I take very seriously is that I'm also an AI realist. What does an AI realist mean? It means that we have to deliver outcomes from AI. We're not just interacting with AI or implementing AI because it does cool things. We actually need to achieve results. The second piece of that is responsibility and safety. And those things go hand in hand. And today, more organizations than ever really need strong partners who understand what safety, what responsibility, but also what outcomes mean. Now, where are we from a realist perspective? From an FDA commissioner perspective, AI has done amazing things for them, and it's a big part of their future, right? We've seen that already. The next piece of it is most teams, most professionals within clinical operations teams have used AI in some way. Nearly 8 out of 10 have used AI in some way related to their job. But there's a gap, and that is why we're here. There's a massive gap between some incidental use of AI and actually operationalizing AI. Only 1 out of 10 clinical trial operations teams have actually implemented AI in a way that's scalable, repeatable, that becomes core to their processes. Why is that? what is the opportunity? And that is that AI can't fix what is connected to your workflows, right? We know this even at TCN. We introduce new technology, and then folks say, well, where do I have to log in, right? Where do I have to go? And I think that's one of the biggest challenges in the AI community for folks who have sort of started and said, well, we're AI first. Well, the site world is already full of solutions. They're already full of platforms, right? Do I need one more thing? And the answer to Ryan's point is no, we need less things. That's the entire goal. Sites have real ambitions around AI, and that is including reducing administration, increasing compliance, taking a lot of the burden off of the team members. And at the same time, sponsors certainly have very, very large visions in terms of what AI can do for them, in terms of transformation, in terms of ROI, but even creating competitive advantages. But how do we actually bridge that gap where both parties get what they want? Real progress has to be connected. If I were to ask you, if a sponsor went twice as fast with respect to its clinical trial agreement negotiation, but a site did nothing in terms of improving its speed, would we really be optimizing? Would we really be achieving the goals that we want to? And the answer is no. When Ryan led off this morning, a huge part of his discussion was, how do we bring sites and sponsors together in a collaborative way? AI is a perfect opportunity to see that even playing field where sites have AI, sponsors have AI, and they're both using it in a way that's very, very comfortable for them, that fits into their existing workflows. And that's why we're so excited to have our partnership with Florence and be able to bring AI, not just the solutions that we built today, but the solutions that we're building tomorrow, straight to the fingertips of the Florence user community. We have AI that is already working and is already delivering value. Hopefully you'll get a chance to come by and see us at the Contract Network. We deliver site markup, site red lines in minutes versus 5 to 15 hours. And Florence has audit trail analysis. What are two things that we have in common in that? The first piece of it is that we're tackling things that we're not focused today on what is the highest use case. What are things that we can safely implement where humans have responsibility, humans have the ultimate insight, but we're just solving baseline problems that people can be comfortable with, that they know this is a safe, responsible use case, but it's also one that's delivering outcomes. And here we see the next piece of Florence, where Florence is going to be flagging documents for quality control. We're just identifying missing pages. We're identifying gaps in signatures. Is that something that you feel like is an administrative burden? Is that a safe and practical use of AI? It's a great, great use of AI. And from here, where Florence goes and where the Contract Network goes is really about enabling the entire protocol, the entire site operations life cycle. And that's why I'm very honored to be able to introduce the little bit of a sneak peek of where Florence is going and where the Contract Network hopes to be able to contribute, and that is trial flow. Trial flow, when we talk about AI, one of the biggest concerns, if you haven't heard it, is transparency, right? How do I see, how do I know what the AI is doing? We had a great conversation, Chad and I did yesterday, about how do we explain to the audience, or how do we tell people what's happening? Well, the irony is that there are a lot of things that we don't see. It's not just necessarily do we need to be able to explain or understand where things are from an AI perspective. How about the ability to actually flip the table and say, let's use AI to better understand where we are in our study startup. Let's understand better where we are in our trial as a whole. And trial reporting is a fantastic use case for AI. It's responsible, and it gives you the ability to actually use AI to create tremendous transparency. What's happening at any point in time? Where are we seeing those breakpoints in the trials? Where can we pinpoint the exact problems that are causing it a problem in this trial, or that are causing problems against all of our trials? Creating intelligence from your workflows every day, creating intelligence from an otherwise quite chaotic process is the vision and the opportunity where AI can go next. Thank you very much for having me.
All right, thank you guys for sitting with us through that. So thank you to Jim and Ryan and the product team, all of whom are done breathing again now that they are off stage. We were so glad that you were able to sit through this with us and hear the story and the narrative of where Florence is going. And hopefully it really resonated with you that we are trying to move from a narrative around shared pain to one of shared experience and shared responsibility through shared workflows. So with that, that formally ends the product session of the opening, and now we get to move into a little bit something more exciting. Before I transition to the next speaker, though, are there anybody from the back who would like to find a seat who is standing? We're good? All right. All right. Well, thank you, guys. I am now excited to welcome to the stage somebody who I am a little bit of a fangirl of. You may have heard of him. His name is Dr. Robert Califf. Dr. Califf is one of the founding members of the Duke Clinical Research Initiative. He was also led it for many years before becoming a 2-time FDA commissioner and then eventually taking a space at Verily and leaving his mark upon technology. For those of you who do not collect FDA commissioner baseball cards the way that I do, I can't think of anybody that I am more impressed with and who has made a bigger impact on our industry. So please join me in welcoming Dr. Califf to the stage. You get the hot seat. Yes. All right, Dr. Califf.
Good morning.
Good morning. How are you, sir?
I'm doing all right. It's a little wet here in Atlanta.
Yes, I'm glad you were able to make it in. Also, I have to let you know that in order to prep for this so I could read my notes, I had to increase the font on my phone for the first time. So that is my commitment to you, sir. I am now using the large font so I can read.
I've been there for a while.
Well, thank you, Dr. Califf. One of the things that I have been most impressed with you is your length and breadth of your career and your innate interest in trial operations. It is not often that I've worked with physicians who take such an interest in it, so it's amazing to see that you've done that. Looking back over your time in tenure, where do you think you've really seen improvement, and where do you think we still have some room to go?
Well, I mean, first of all, I'm interested in trial operations because I really started out as a coronary care unit director at the time when we figured out that blood clots caused heart attacks. For young people, that's hard to imagine. You would have even not known that, but we didn't. In 1975, I was taught as a medical student that blood clots did not cause heart attacks because no one was doing angiograms acutely. Yeah. And when you die, your blood clots lyse spontaneously, so autopsies didn't show the blood clots. But all of a sudden, we started doing angiograms in people with heart attacks, and the leading cause of death, for the first time, we knew what the cause was, but there was no effective treatment. So the pressure was on to do something. At the time, we would have 3 or 4 people a day who would die in the Duke coronary care unit because our treatment was basically morphine, nitrates, and prayer. That was essentially it.
Yeah.
And so we were really trying to develop treatments that worked, and it just turned out I had access to computing at the time at the university that most other people didn't have. So we became a coordinating center for clinical trials. And it was immediately obvious that the best ideas in the world usually don't work, and that the only way to tell is to do a high-quality clinical study, preferably for interventions of clinical trial. Yeah. And getting good data turned out to be really hard, so I got really interested in it. So working on it my whole career, what I'd say in terms of victories and defeats, I hate to say this, but I would say the theory has become far advanced, and I think your presentation now showed where the theory is headed. Mm-hmm. In practice, you also pointed out it's actually taking longer.
Right.
Our protocols are more complicated, and we're sort of gummed up in terms of the speed we need to move. And this is especially important now for some reasons that I'm sure we'll go into as we talk. But I think we know a lot about what needs to be done. unfortunately, at least in the U.S., it's not fitting in well right now with the practice of healthcare.
Yeah. And if you could point to a couple of reasons why you feel there's that pushback. I mean, I have my theories. I'd like to hear yours.
Well, I think it's sort of useful to divide clinical trials into two types. There's the type which is intended to advance a medical product through the system.
Right.
And there's the type that's intended to inform patients and clinicians about what to do with various interventions. It might be a medical product, it might be a system of care where the clinical outcome is the important thing. And for that latter type, we know now this it should just be part of routine clinical practice. But it's not.
Right.
We've built a healthcare system in which we purposely separated research and practice, and that is a horribly inefficient way to do things. Now, on that other type, which is mostly what you were talking about in your presentation, I've got a new drug. We know that most new drugs don't work. 9 out of 10 that get into phase 1 don't make it to market.
Yep.
And so we got to winnow out the winners and the losers, and a lot of that can and should happen separate from clinical practice. Phase 1 trials being the really good example. But because it's sort of been a one-off industry, each pharmaceutical or device sponsor on his or her own, without the kind of collaboration that's needed, it's just been horribly inefficient. And the research sites have been the same way. We've been unable to achieve an economy of scale. And I know that's what you're trying to do.
Yeah.
We'll see if you succeed. A lot of people have tried, and we know it's the right thing to do, so we'll see if we get there.
Yeah, it is. It's something, I mean, I've been around 20-something years, and when I started, it felt like, everyone's like, this is so slow, we can't be this way forever. And then I know that a lot of us in the room, we get caught up in the day-to-day, and we don't see the progress we made. But it is sometimes nice to look back like a decade or two, right? In the year to year, you're not going to see it. But if you go back 10 years and 10 years before that, you can start to see a little bit of progress. So yeah, I'm hopeful we'll make it too. It may be my child who sees it before I do.
Well, it's one of those things where, yes, we've made a lot of progress, but technology is moving so much faster than the ability to evaluate it. It's like the goal post keeps moving, and we have to adapt to that. And you know, there are several big reasons why I think in the U.S. right now it's critical. We're spending $5 trillion a year in healthcare delivery for the worst survival of any high-income country by far, and that difference is growing.
Right.
So I feel a compelling need not just to evaluate products to get them on the market, but to figure out which ones are really effective and which ones we could stop wasting money on.
Right.
So we can focus the money on the ones that are really useful and effective. And then on the other hand, what a time of biomedical science. You talk about gene editing, tremendous changes in the development of devices. We just came from the greatest show in device industry, the TCT meeting, which was in San Francisco.
Yeah.
And just the technology is breathtaking. As a cardiologist, if you had told me when I started in the 1980s that we could replace a cardiac valve percutaneously,
yeah,
how could you possibly do that? But it's routine.
Yeah.
Now, so the technology keeps moving, and our assessment capability is not keeping pace, and that's a big problem.
Yeah, it is. It is a problem. We see it not only in the medical technology, but in technology we use here, and just the innovation. And I pointed at it. You know, it's starting to go faster, and at this point, it's outpacing our ability to keep up with the change. Having that mindset, thinking about what the next 5 years are going to look like, where do you think we're going to hit the biggest potholes in the road as we try to go faster? Because there's a lot of people thinking about how to go faster and trying to innovate, but inevitably we're going to hit that bump.
Well, I think whenever we talk about this, I think it's useful to take a step back and look at what the overall enterprise really is. Now, I think it's appropriate that your presentation that I just listened to was focused on the sponsor and the site. But we have many other players on the field in order to get this done. The participants are patients. In most cases are really important. The regulatory system is obviously important. The regulators at the FDA and at CMS, if we're talking about the U.S., have views, and things can't go forward without their agreement. The IRBs are by law meant to be independent of everybody else so that they can watch the ethics. So in all that mix, it's almost like a recipe for inefficiency because it really is almost a social activity as much as it is anything else to reach agreement.
Yeah.
If you think about a multi-site clinical trial of the kind I used to do and that I really love, you might have 1,000 sites. Everybody's got to agree on a protocol. You got to have consent forms, et cetera. So the inefficiency is always at risk of getting worse. And I would argue that despite the advances in technology, if you look at the metrics that you referred to, and Ken Getz at Tufts, it keeps a really comprehensive set of metrics, we're actually headed the wrong direction in terms of efficiency. But it's fixable if we can pull these elements together. And I am an AI enthusiast also because it's a technology that can help us do what we've known that we needed to do for a long time.
Right.
But it was just really hard to do it with the technology that existed as I was coming up through the system. So I think the biggest, potholes right now are just more on the human side than the technology side.
Right.
It's how do you get people to work together to achieve common purposes?
Absolutely. That's something that we talk about all the time, that the best technology in the world is not going to help it if we can't agree to use it. And how do we do change management? So I think that's something for everybody in the room to think about is as we move forward, there are tools that are going to be available. There'll be innovation available. What is the change management process that has to be in play in order to make those successful? Because it is humans. Humans are always the failure in the system, right? So how do we help ourselves?
Well, I think there's going to be sort of a philosophical purpose issue going on. Now, I'm talking about the U.S. I think things are different in the U.S. right now than almost every other country for the reasons that I gave. And we have an unusual government right now. And so it's going to be a tumultuous time. In the lectures I'm giving, it's really about dealing with these issues in a tumultuous time because it's unpredictable what RFK Jr. may decide to do on the next day. You just don't know what is going to happen. And we are in this situation where, thanks in part to MAHA, the average American now is aware that we have the worst health outcomes of any high-income country. What we got to do is to not steer the country in a direction of let's use unproven dietary supplements and other things like that are being sold over the internet. Let's develop the evidence for what works and do it really well. And that's where the research and practice have to come together.
Right.
So in everything else I've done, it's really hard to make change if leadership doesn't see it as a priority.
Right.
So I probably don't have to take a poll of how many people think that research is a top priority of the institutions that they work for. What I'm hearing, now that I'm out of the government again for the second time, is the pressure on clinicians in the U.S. has never been so extreme to generate revenue through clinical practice. And I know that a more efficient research operation can generate revenue, but it's hard to compete.
It is hard to compete.
And so we've got to win the battle philosophically. The way to get out of the conundrum that we're in is not just to generate more RVUs, but to be smarter in what we do by having the evidence about what's effective and what's not and how to use it. And also to move quickly for some of the dramatic new things that are coming along. I mean, if you had a rare genetic disease right now in your family, we're on the verge for hundreds of these rare genetic diseases to revolutionize treatment so that children can live who otherwise would have died. But we're also in a situation where our children's hospitals are in dire straits right now. There aren't enough pediatricians. The whole system has to get organized to take care of. And I think, to me, that's while we're working from the bottom up to develop operational systems, which is what you're doing, and we need consortia of sites that work together, and it does sound like you're pulling those together. We also need at the top to have a purpose, to make it a priority,
Right.
to get these things done. And that's something that I believe we all need to be involved in. We all need to be voicing that as an important element.
Absolutely. Before, I'm trying to save the Maha conversation for a little bit later. So before we delve into that one, I want to talk about,
Feel free, by the way, always like this, let me just give my spiel here to make sure we can liven it up. I've been a political appointee twice. I've been through 2 Senate confirmations. I've had to deal with Rand Paul and Bernie Sanders in the same hearings in the Senate. I'm 74 years old. I'm not looking for a job, and I'm not looking for an NIH grant, so I can say I can say words like equity and disparities and not worry that somebody's going to cancel my contract or whatever.
That's true.
Is involved, and so don't worry, everything's on the table. Feel free to bring up any issue that you want.
Noted. In our prep sessions, Dr. Califf and I had 2 prep sessions. I was like, do I need to send you the script ahead of time? He's like, literally, you can't scare me. And I was like, all right, good. I like to know the bar is low. Okay, well, in that notion, I wanted to push on a topic that is a little bit controversial in this room around the concept of site networks and the change from the academic medical center as the hub and the gold standard of research to understanding that there's a lot of problems in AMCs, and then the individual sites, and then the networks. And this concept you talked about it has to have some economic impact. Sites have to do well in order to move forward. People talk about those networks as being for-profit as negative, but in reality, like if you're not for-profit, then you're not able to fund the operation. How do you talk about that and see that balanced out in your space?
Sure. I mean, a couple of things here. First of all, as I mentioned, I started out being a director of intensive care units, and you learn there very quickly that you may be high-minded about the theory of how diseases work and what the right treatments are. But if you're going to save lives, it's the operations. It's actually the nurses and respiratory therapists and who really make the difference in how a unit operates. And I think while I'm very interested in the big theories of clinical trials and methods and all that, at a fundamental level, unless you have the operations right, clinical trials aren't going to work. And each individual site is not enough for most of the questions that are most important these days. You need multi-site trials, and you can't be an efficient operator if each trial is doing its own thing. We can't have free-range chickens operating as sites and expect it to work well. So you need an organization. Now, the second thing is I've learned, and I feel entitled to say this because I've worked in academic medical centers and biotech and big tech. I worked at, as you mentioned, at Google for 6 years. I've been on the boards of device companies. I've helped develop all those technologies. For-profit and not-for-profit, when we use those words, it brings up ideas about what the purpose is. But when you go to a board meeting of a not-for-profit these days, it looks just like the board meeting of a for-profit company. It's just that the margins go to different places. And so I think the real question is, what is the organization achieving and for what purpose? The decision about whether you pay taxes, which is really what for-profit or not-for-profit means, is really a question about what's going to serve the purpose the best. It's kind of interesting. I'm helping some students start some startups now. And there's a third type called a public benefits corporation, which is for-profit, but it explicitly denotes that the money is meant for a purpose, and that is watched pretty carefully by the investors who don't expect to get the returns that a for-profit gets. So I think rather than sort of divide into for-profit and not-for-profit, I would look at the purpose of the organization. Now, for-profit taken to the extreme, I think, is a problem, and it's actually the core problem in American medicine. So I'm not arguing that we should pay no attention
Right.
to what's being done with the money. If you look at, what I think the core issue in American medicine right now is, it's that if we were balancing financial objectives with professional or well-being of patient objectives, financial objectives are way up here now. The professional objectives are way down here.
Yeah.
And I just think we need to bring those into balance regardless of whether it's for-profit or not-for-profit. So to summarize, what I'd say is we need site networks. I've always believed that. Probably different kinds of trials need to have different kinds of networks. Like if you're doing phase 1 trials and that's all you do, that's a very different ballgame than doing clinical effectiveness trials on a large scale where the research is actually done in the context of clinical care. And there's some commonalities, but I think banding together to get the operations right so that you can move quickly when you have the right kind of trial is really critical.
Excellent. Thank you. I think most people in this room would agree, right? It's not the institution, it's the mission and the quality of the work that they provide, as long as we're all working towards the greater good and that balance. Speaking about quality, I know you talk a lot about quality by design, and I've worked with Citi. I've been fortunate to work with Citi for 3 years now, trying to help with some of the quality by design initiatives and really talking about what it means to be thoughtful and planful on the front end, so that our protocols are better delivered on the back end. Do you want to talk a little bit about the work that you've done in this space and kind of your viewpoint?
Sure. I mean, I really started out that way because, as I mentioned, I started with heart attack.
Mm-hmm.
You can't take a heart attack patient and say, we've got a clinical trial, why don't you come to our research clinic, down the road. And
Yeah.
You have to get consent and do the trial in the context of delivering, very risky clinical care. And we've learned very quickly that to distinguish effective from ineffective heart attack treatments, you need large sample sizes. So I went from running a coronary care unit to doing 40,000 patient clinical trials in the course of a few years. And it became obvious that if you try to use the same methods for a phase 1 trial and for a 40,000 person outcome trial, you're not going to do any 40,000 people trials because you just can't afford it. And I think we figured that out 30 or 40 years ago, but for whatever reason, the industry sort of got off on its own approach of taking the most detailed approach to early phase trials and then trying to apply that to big trials. And that led now to a lot of discussions with methodologists and regulators and government agencies about what's a better approach. And it's just something that's used in every industry, quality by design. You start with what's the question? What are you trying to answer?
Yeah.
And if the question is, does treatment A or treatment B reduce mortality, and you need 20,000 people in the trial, you probably don't need to collect how many times people have hiccups for the 2-year period of the trial duration. And if the question is which antibiotic is better, and this is one that really bothered me my first time through the FDA, you probably don't need to collect every medication change in an ICU. We looked, when I was at FDA in 2016, for example, and no one was doing ID development, essentially, because the cost was so high. 94% of the data that was collected was never even looked at by the FDA reviewers. So what we need to do is start with what's the question, then work back to what data do you need to collect, and then what are the elements of the data where you really need very high quality, and what are the elements of the data where you can tolerate error rates that are within a certain range.
Yeah.
Because they're not really critical, they're providing background information that would be nice to know but not essential to answer the question. Then you can design a trial where the budget matches the need, and you're not wasting money on things that are never going to be used.
Right.
And that's sort of the spirit of quality by design. On the other hand, if you're doing a phase 1 trial of a new molecule, you need clocks and you need to give the treatment at exactly when you think, and you need to make the measurements very precisely. So another way of saying it is there is no substitute for being an expert in the field.
Right.
And somebody very smart, I think all of you know that before thalidomide, there was no requirement for proving efficacy of a drug to get it on the market. If a doctor said it was good, it was presumed to be good.
Yeah.
But doctors were also selling different kinds of cigarettes. Is one better than the other? But in the law, it says adequate and well-controlled clinical studies in the view of experts in the field.
Right.
And what we've done, I think, was to say we can make one size fits all rather than saying let's use expertise to design a trial that really optimally answers the question in the most efficient way. So that's what quality by design is meant to do. Now, there is one other thing that relates to AI. Some of the things that we were talking about 5 or 6 years ago, we don't have to worry about as much now, as we're moving into an era where we'll be able to crawl electronic health records to just collect all the data for various things. What used to cost a fortune to do by translation from one record to another, almost by hand, the way you think about, even though it's in electronic systems, didn't automatically transfer. That's happening now. It's not where it needs to be yet, but it won't be too much longer before it is. So a lot of the stuff we used to worry about, maybe we won't have to worry about so much in the future.
Yeah, the medical record thing, I grew up in the military, and so every time we changed post, I remember my dad having to go get our medical records, and we would literally carry them to the next location where we were going to be stationed, and we would turn them in, and that's how we had continuity of care. And that seems silly, right? But at least the military thought about it. Post outside of that world, my care records are in 15 different centers, right? As I've moved throughout the industry, how do we get that together so we can see the true longitudinal data around my evolution? And I think that's exciting. I think that is exciting about technology. You hinted at something that I think is exciting, but I also guess probably made a couple in this room shiver about AI can crawl medical records, right? And start to aggregate data and do all of that. How many people got a little nervous when they heard that? It's okay, it's a safe space. Y'all are liars. I've been in rooms with you, y'all are liars. Whenever we talk about AI and overlaying on patient data, there's almost an immediate visceral reaction to it. But we know that's where we need to go. So as we start to think about that, how can we do that in a way that is conscientious so that we're allaying the fears, but really addressing what needs to happen, which is getting better data and better and faster access for analysis?
I think there's several things about AI and electronic health records. And, even if we didn't say AI, we just said people looking at your electronic health record. But, of course, the beauty of AI is that it can do things in seconds that a human would take days or weeks or to do sometimes. I think the first thing to realize in the big picture, and this is no secret, but for reasons that I actually disagree with, we made a division in the way we thought about the ethics of people's data between health data and other data. And you probably all know that if I wanted to predict, until you actually get a serious illness, if I wanted to predict when you're going to die or when you're going to get sick, I would do much better using your consumer data than your health data. I worked at Google, and there's no prohibition on, Google and the other big tech companies know everything about you. They know where you shop, they know what you buy. And, those kinds of things really tell you more about a person's health when they're not overtly sick than an electronic health record does.
Right.
And so I think that's wrong, that we ought to be treating all data the same for the reason that I just gave, but we've made that division. And then I would say the argument we really need to have is, one example is de-identified data and identified data. Identified data is much more, if I wanted to help you as a doctor, I would do much better with identified data than de-identified data. That's kind of obvious.
Right.
But the same is true if you wanted to learn about which treatments are best or just about anything else about health. And I hate to tell you this, but there really is no such thing as de-identified data. And this has been known for a long time, but a good computer scientist can take so-called de-identified data by the 18 criteria that we talk about, and using probabilistic inference can pretty much figure out who you are if they wanted to do it. So the question really is not, in my view, should we prohibit it, but what should the penalty be for using it inappropriately? And the argument ought to be about what's appropriate and what's inappropriate.
Right.
So another way of thinking about this, if you're mathematical, my whole career has been about algorithms of predicting, heart attack outcomes or heart failure outcomes. And you've got a set of variables and then it equals something. AI is just a much more complicated set of variables that's infinitely expansive to produce some outcome in the equation. And the question is, what's the outcome of interest? If the outcome of interest is a humanistic thing that helps people, then we need more of it, not less.
Right.
If the outcome is something that's being used to segregate people in a way that is not good from a humanistic perspective, this is like a nuclear weapon that just makes it easier to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And one concern I have right now is that the biggest use of AI in healthcare is to segregate people who can pay from those who can't. Probably if you're a clinician, you probably know that your administrators have a long list of which RVUs and which procedures make the biggest profit.
Right.
And you're told to do more of those.
Yeah.
And at the same time, when we use the word payer mix, what it really is saying, the people on whom we can make money and the people on whom we can't make money. And AI is really good at that. If we gain control of that dependent variable, what is the equation trying to solve for? Then I think the more AI, the better.
Yeah.
Because we'll just do things much more efficiently.
Right.
But we're not there yet.
We're not. We're warming up to it. It's a crawl, walk, run, as we say in technology, getting people used to the idea and then starting to show that it is assume the good, right? Assume that we're acting in a good manner and in a safe manner and go from there.
Well, if I have one message in this, it's don't assume that. And speak up.
Yeah.
This is a time where I think a lot of people need to have courage to speak up, to just balance. You said it, no margin, no mission. We all understand that. If you're running a site, believe me, I ran site networks. The minute you go a few months without a clinical trial, you go under because the operating expenses, you're paying people.
Yeah.
And, they should get paid, but if there's no revenue, you're out of business. We all understand that. We got to balance that with the purpose of all that, and that's going to take people speaking up because I'm using one of my favorite slides now is a meme. You may remember the meme that was popular about a decade ago, math is hard, let's go shopping. And I think right now it's clinical outcomes are hard, let's make money.
Yeah.
It's just much harder to figure out how to balance things so that you're really doing things that accrue the benefit of the patient.
Fair. One of the things
Feel free to argue, by the way.
No, I think it's fair. Like sometimes it's easy for me to be opportunistic and be like, well, we would never do that. Why would anybody else do that? But it is like we do have to be vocal. We do need to push forward. We need to talk when boundaries are crossed in a way that is not progress but backwards. So I appreciate that viewpoint. You hinted though at a couple of things, and you and I talked about a little on our prep call, is that the whole barrier to adoption of some of these innovations, quality by design, RBQM, AI, things like that, is the perception of risk or the worry of penalty. And you said something that I thought was really interesting. You're like everybody's afraid of a 483. Who in here is afraid of a 483? Safe space, people, hands up. All right. It's literally the boogeyman. When I was at a research site, anytime a physician was giving me attitude, I'd be like, you're a 483 waiting to happen, right? It happens. But you were like, 483 isn't meant to be punitive. And I think that's a really interesting concept, and I'd like you to talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, who would have thought an FDA commissioner would be passionate about 483s? But I've gotten 483s, so I'm,
Yeah.
I know a good bit about it, and I can't say that I solved the problem at the FDA, but we sure looked at it in detail and worked on it. 483 is meant to be is someone noting that there's an issue that needs to be resolved with the quality of the work that's being done. Sometimes it really can be a disaster, like we had, you know, generic drug manufacturing sites with animals running through the facility and things. That's like a real bad 483.
Yeah.
But, you know, not signing your form correctly
Not
on a
initially,
clinical
never
trial
your page.
is that's just something that can be dealt with. And I think it just has gotten out of control where if you get a 483, you're worried that you will not be offered the chance to participate in the clinical trials, and then it turns into an escalating inspection war of maybe not even trying to mislead investigators when they come to look at other things, and then a huge cost of it's like the cost of the last 10% of stuff that's done in clinical trials is enormous, and yet most of it contributes nothing to answering the trial. It's just buttoning things up so you don't get a 483.
Right.
Now, when you looked inside the FDA, you know, things are changing rapidly there. So I'm just talking about up until January.
Up until the last commissioner left.
What you know, what was going on inside the FDA was there was a system where the inspectorate was separate from the product centers. And so you had inspectors going out, finding problems, writing their reports. There might be a 483. Then the whole thing was lateraled over a wall to the product center, let's say drugs, biologics, or devices. Then they would put it in perspective and make a decision about what the final outcome was.
Right.
But in the meanwhile, months would go by. And of course, if you got a 483, you were in purgatory and may lose business during that time. So what we did was to pull that quality system into one system as opposed to separate systems. I've heard that, I think probably due to personnel shortages, they're stopping that now because they need the inspectors to go everywhere.
Yeah.
But we've got to overcome this because hiding that you have a problem is a really bad idea.
Right.
And punishing people who find problems and correct them is a really bad idea. I learned a lot about this early on in cardiac surgery. Before we had percutaneous intervention, we managed the first registry for cardiac surgery. Now, the issue that came up was it was so expensive in the 1980s compared to other things that most states said, we're not going to pay you unless you collect data to show that you're doing a good job.
Right.
And the surgeons wisely said, rather than have the states collect the data, we'll do it ourselves. And they hired us to do it. And we found this paradox that was really puzzling. The surgical sites that had the most complications also had the lowest mortality. And of course, now what we learned was the reason was because they were actually looking for complications.
Right.
They were measuring them, and then they were fixing the problem.
Right.
So their patients did better. But if all you were looking at was the complications, you would punish those sites as being inferior. The ones with fewer complications basically weren't looking as hard to record and measure them. So the 483, I think, has gotten perverted into something which is on net sort of detrimental.
Right.
But I'm not saying we should do away with measuring and reporting these things. We need to really work on
how they're
fixing
perceived.
it.
Right.
But it's so ingrained in the way the different organizations work that it's hard to fix.
It is. I was at a talk recently that talked about psychological safety and talks about the hospitals that report the most errors are actually the ones who have the best outcomes, right? Because they're not afraid. And so I think that I wanted you to tell that story because I think it's important for us to remember in here that issues happen, right? 483s may happen. You will have findings. You will have CAPAs. But the anxiety shouldn't come with that because each one of those is an opportunity to get better. And as we make it more okay to report those and acknowledge them, you get to psychological safety and hopefully we get to better outcomes.
Yeah, this is a chance for me to shamelessly promote my Substack.
Go for it.
Rather than write a book, which a lot of people urge me to do after being in government twice, I'm just writing on a thing called a Substack, which is a chapter. It's about one a week. They're going to be about 100 of them. It's going to be sort of like a book, but I've got 2 or 3 chapters that will be devoted to the 483, and I do plan to follow up on this because I think the analogy of, you said hospitals in general, or my early experience with cardiac surgery, I think it's really detrimental if finding problems and improving yourself is regarded as a negative thing, and we've got to fix this.
We do. Also, I have to thank Dr. Califf for his Substack as well, because that forced me to learn a whole nother platform and technology that I was not prepared to do. So you are still innovating on the daily. Okay, so we talked about 483. Now I want to dive into the part of the conversation around, you talk about priorities and funding and amplification in government really helps set those priorities. We know that we're in a position now where funding decisions have shifted and there's a lot of fallout from that. I think I've heard noise about the federal funding going down will be made up by this influx of industry funding, and I've also seen a lot of conversations about how that's not actually plausible because there's different reasons and purposes for those dollars. I wanted to give you an opportunity to talk a little bit about the funding shakeup and how you see that playing out and what might be some of the positive or negative outcomes of that.
Well, anyone who knows how this is going to play out, please let me know, because I think it's so unpredictable where we're going to end up. Even the NIH budget, which the administration wanted to cut, this is one of the few places where senators showed spine. I thought to be a senator, you had to be born without a spine. But they actually stood up on this. But there's going to be a showdown whenever they ever come back to work.
Yeah.
I'm not sure when that's going to be either. There's going to be a showdown over the NIH budget. Just to sort of start at the beginning, how does funding work? I've talked about the different kinds of clinical trials, and I've worked on all sides, and there's a reason why the medical products industry, drug device, biologics manufacturers, decide what trials to do using a net present value calculation. They're trying to get over a threshold to get a product on the market with a certain label, and that is their purpose, and that's what drives them, and that's what drives the questions that they ask. It's also critical to know that to get FDA approval, all you have to do is show that benefits outweigh risks for one indication, for one population, for some period of time. Everything else you'd want to know about that product to actually use it in practice doesn't have to be answered to get on the market. Like, which is better? How do you combine products? Even the right dose. I've been involved in developing drugs where we were pretty sure we didn't have the best dose, but we had a dose that worked, and that's enough if you do it. And so there are a whole set of questions that right now in our system usually don't ever get answered.
Right.
And it leads to all this uncertainty in clinical practice and the variation and enormous expense and bad outcomes that we have. And so in my view, I'm a big fan of the medical products industry-driven research. We need to do it. And remember, just to get that one product one situation where the benefits outweigh the risk for some population for some period of time, 9 out of 10 drugs that get into phase 1 don't make it.
Right.
So we're dealing with a very difficult, if you wanted to be a betting person, you would always bet against
the drug
success in drug and device development. I used to think devices were easier, and then I worked at Google. And I swear, my job was I had a shingle on my door that said, if you think you have a great software product for health, see me. And there wasn't a day that went by that I didn't have some brilliant software engineer with a great idea, but almost none of them made it all the way through the system into clinical use. And so it's hard. So I'm a big fan of that. Let's keep doing it and do it more efficiently. But we need another system that answers the question for clinicians and patients, what do I do with all this stuff to get the best outcomes? And this is where I think we're in peril right now if we don't put emphasis on that part of the system.
Right. Thank you. So keeping a One of the other themes that have come out lately is around the conversation around science and medical approval and using evidence to support decision making. You've hinted at RFK Jr. and some of the challenges that presents. I know in the conversations I've had both at Citi and then I work with ACRO to go to the Hill and talk to senators, is there's this concern about trust in the system, trust in the data. And it takes a lot of time for us to build trust. We've been working on it for decades to build trust in patient populations and in diverse populations. And now there's a concern that some of that trust might be being undone and being undone in a way that is irrecoverable. How do you feel about that? And what do you see the conversations where you sit happening? Is there as much concern across the board? Or do you think it's valid?
Yeah, this could be a long conversation, so we might want to divide it up into parts, and you can decide what you want to delve into. I don't think there's any argument that as a society, people have lost trust in institutions, and we've talked about that a lot with regard to federal agencies. That's obvious. But what's talked about less is that they're also losing trust in the medical establishment. Pharma has been in the doghouse for years. Early in my career, I'll never forget, there was a time when the pharma CEO roundtable was opposed to clinicaltrials.gov because they were arguing that acknowledging the human experiments that they were doing would destroy their business model. And so they brought me up to meet with them, and the fellow in front of me had just finished consulting with the oil industry and the tobacco industry.
Yeah.
And I kept his slides because I thought they were phenomenal. And it basically said, if you want people to trust you, you have to act trustworthy.
Right.
Like, who on earth could say that it's ethical to be doing experiments on human beings and keeping it a secret, which is what was happening. Well, that all got fixed. Clinicaltrials.gov is thriving, and the business model was not destroyed. But there has been a very direct effort of many people to undermine confidence of the public in our institutions. Some of it merited for the reason that I gave, if you're not acting trustworthy. My favorite one right now is health system leaders who say, we're patient-centered. Have you ever tried to get an appointment in the United States now for anything? I mean, it's just impossible, I think, to make that argument. It flies in the face of what people are experiencing, including the clinicians that work in the health systems.
Right.
So we've, in part, brought this on ourselves, but there's also an active effort through social media, particularly, to undermine it. And many of the people who are most aggressively undermining it are selling something else, mostly unregulated products that you can buy over the internet, and they're making a lot of money doing it. So this is a tough problem. What people still have confidence in, more than anything else, are the individual human beings that they're seeing when they actually get an appointment, whether it's in a research clinic or a medical clinic. Nurses are higher than doctors. Doctors are pretty high, though.
Yeah.
Pharmacists are very much trusted. It's the people they interact with, and you know right away that these people are really dedicated to trying to help me in the best way possible. So we've got to bridge that. And do you want me to talk a little bit about social media?
I would love to hear your opinion on social media.
I mean, there were several reasons I went to Google. First of all, the first time Trump came in, I was out of a job, so I needed something to do. But I've always been a Duke person, and the university actually said, fine, why don't you split your work between coming back to Duke and going out to Google? So I lived coast to coast. But one of the big reasons was I'd become convinced that addiction to social media was a major problem. And I had a hope, and of course that's built on the idea that when you are scrolling or doom scrolling, you're experiencing surges of dopamine and other neurohormones in your brain that are telling you to keep doing it. And I thought we could reverse engineer that. And what I learned in 6 years there was you can't reverse engineer it, it turns out. There's no way to really stop it just by using social media itself. And so I think the only solution to this is volume. I also spent time, I mean, what an amazing advertising machine. You can love it or hate it. There are plenty of reasons to hate it. But it is amazing. And there are some secrets to advertising that cause you to use your hypothalamus and limbic system in preference to your cerebral cortex when you shop. But most of it is just volume. If you say the same thing over and over, people start to believe it.
Yep.
And what's happening is the purveyors of misinformation are constantly on social media, 24/7. The medical establishment puts out a press release or tells you to come to the clinic in 3 months for a 15-minute visit. And there's no competition between those two. And so I think the biggest change we got to make is that our people who really believe that the best way to improve people's health is to have them do things repetitively that are proven to be effective, like eat the right food, don't use tobacco, exercise, use effective generic drugs for our common problems. They're almost all generic now, except for one big one, obesity, which will change over time.
Yeah.
But what people are hearing is astounding. I got a message from one of our advanced research fellows last month, which I put on a Substack, which is there. And she got pregnant, and very knowledgeable person, and she said, where did I get the best information about what to do at the end of pregnancy and with my new baby? It was TikTok. And she went through how much easier it was to learn from TikTok than waiting weeks to see a great OBGYN, but for 10 or 15 minutes.
Yeah.
And then she gave me a list of 10 things that were just as compelling on TikTok that were lethal or not good.
Mm-hmm.
And there would be no way for a layperson to distinguish what was useful, reliable information from information that could really kill you.
Yeah.
And so we can't ignore this, is what I believe, and we're going to have to wake up to it. Now, how to do that? That's
a different one.
That's a tough question,
right.
But I think a lot of it is volume, and I worry a lot that our sleepiness on this is part of the reason that Americans are doing so many things that are unhealthful right now.
Right. As a parent of a teenager, I can tell you that the repetitive motion really does influence behavior buying and questions that you have to answer for them. So it's out there. All right, Dr. Califf, thank you. We're closing in on our time, but I don't want to leave the room on a sad note that we all have to give up TikTok. All of you. Speaking to who the audience is, we have sites, we have CROs, we have sponsors. What can they do in their day-to-day as they move forward out of this conference to really kind of stay engaged and keep moving forward in a way that is productive and helpful to advancing the mission of better care in America?
Well, when I'm giving this talk to clinicians, I always make the point that your number one job is to practice your profession optimally as best you can. And that just means be expert in what you do. So if you're a research site, kind of things that you all were talking about in the introduction, I'm not here to endorse a product, and I don't know about know the details about Florence, but these conceptually simple operational things are so important because we have so many more questions that need to be answered than we have answers. And getting the right evidence is going to be critical to guiding society on what we need to spend money on in healthcare. So focus on being an optimal research site. That's job number one. But number two is preserve some mental energy to speak up on this big issue in front of us now of how do we balance finance with professionalism. And when I say professionalism, if you're in the healthcare industry, that really means your fiduciary interest is to the patient, not to the entity that you work for. And that requires that you speak up because it's so much easier just to focus on the money and assume that someone else is worrying about what's good for the patient. And I would really emphasize having the courage to speak up. And it's not like we're just going to do things for free. We still have to be financially okay, but let's balance it with what's good for the patient.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Califf. I appreciate this time and this talk, and I appreciate your fashion sense and commitment to bow ties. So, in a spirit of non-branded, non-endorsement, we did get you a new bow tie custom made in Florence colors, but it doesn't say Florence, and hopefully you will enjoy it and add it to your collection.
Thanks so much.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Excellent job. After you. We are in the home stretch before lunch. Everybody still with us? Everybody still pumped? All right. I would like next to welcome Ryan Jones to the stage to talk about our next panel of speakers.
And I would like to welcome Andy Corts and Anthony Costello to the stage. Round of applause for Andy and Anthony. Go one in the center. Thanks for coming. Have a seat. Where's 5? Awesome. I'm going to ask us to do one more thing. Stand up. There we go.
I have to get unhooked. Thank you.
Like I said, we're lucky to have some of the most talented research leaders from around the world. I also said on your toes. So stand up, stretch. Now sit down. Thank you. I felt very powerful in that moment. To conclude this morning's remarks, I think it's fitting that we have two of the most influential leaders from the site, sponsor, and digital ecosystem sides of our business. We started out today hearing from me and some of the Florence team. We heard from Dr. Califf about the global national picture. And now we're going to talk about getting shit done using technology. I'm lucky to have these two gentlemen. First, on our right is Anthony Costello. Anthony started his career in data management at Genentech in the 90s. So not only was he wearing neon green and yellow, but he was figuring out how to get data from one place to another at the beginning of the biotech revolution. He then built chips that you may have seen in your local 5K. I think this is such a cool left turn that your career took in making timing devices for when you're running road races. And then ultimately he founded Mitros, which was acquired by Medidata back in 2017 and rose through the ranks of Medidata to become CEO. And he may also have the distinction of rivaling me in being a bigger bike nerd than I am. What's the right number of bikes before you get divorced? I have 6. Is that the right number or is that the wrong number?
Well, when I got divorced, I was down to 3.
That's very
So I don't know if
responsible.
there's a correlation between those things.
More bikes better. So thanks for joining us, Anthony. Andy started his career like me and is now a recovering consultant. So one of my first jobs out of school was building PowerPoint slides at a high rate of speed. That's where Andy cut his teeth as well. He then rose to handle some of the thorniest IT and infrastructure challenges at ACA, rising to be Chief Information Officer at Sarah Cannon, and then took a left turn not to digital timing but into digital workflows and clinical trials by joining a partner company of Florence, SignalPath, that Google ultimately acquired about 3 years ago, and now he's the CTO of OneOncology. I'd like to welcome Anthony to make some remarks. The way we're going to run this session is we're going to have about 10 minutes each to hear from the source, from two leaders who've built technology from the ground up in the clinical trial space, and then we're going to do a little couch talk to dive into some of the issues that they brought up in their talk. So Anthony, take it away.
Great, thanks, Ryan, and thanks to all of you for being here. It's been an amazing morning. I kind of want to scrap all the slides and just get right into
it.
Dissecting the first few speakers and a lot of the conversation that you've already had up here today. But let me just give a few minutes on Medidata. So first of all, maybe just a quick show of hands, if you don't mind. How many people in the room have used some Medidata product on at least one study? Okay, great. So I don't think I have a clicker. Am I advancing slides or is someone else doing that?
I don't know how that works. I guess someone else is doing that.
Okay.
You got the next one.
There we go. So just a quick background on Medidata. We've been around just over 26 years now, and the core EDC system that we offer, which is called Rave, has been sort of our flagship product for all of that time. And I hope that we can get into some of the adoption curve conversations that have been hinted at already this morning. But it took a good 12, 15 years for EDC to really take hold after Medidata and a couple other early EDC companies kicked off that technology. And today it's sort of ubiquitously used across the industry, whether you're using Medidata or one of the many other EDC platforms that are out there. Medidata has about just over 1 million users. 700,000 plus of those are Rave certified users, but also many of our users also use other Medidata technologies. We'll get into a little bit of that in a second. We've done about 36,000 trials globally across every therapeutic area, every phase, and we've covered about 11 million patients across those trials. One of the things we're really proud about is that we do work extensively with sites. Hopefully, many of you already know that, but we have a dedicated site insights team that works with Medidata regularly, partly via our partnership with SCRS, and partly just sites that we have brought into Medidata. We have a patient insights program, we have a site insights program, and we merge those two programs together. Often we run 15 or 20 workshops a year, many of them with both of those groups combined, in order to feed the best insight we can get from all of you, as well as from patients that are on clinical trials or have been on clinical trials before, because we think that that is critical to helping us build the best technology that you can adopt and use in the very complex environments that you're all working in. So if we can go to the next slide. I talked a little bit about the Site Insights program. It's about 3 years old now. The Patient Insights program is about 6 years old. We've brought those together. I talked about the workshops that we run, and I'm gonna be around for a while after the talk today, and I hope that any of you that might be interested in joining our Site Insights group, please come find me. We want that group to be comprehensive and well represented across all different types and sizes of sites in the industry. So please let me know if that's something that interests you. Next slide. So as I mentioned, Rave is probably still the most used EDC platform in our industry, and we've really evolved a lot since developing Rave, although most of our users are at least using Rave and maybe some other Medidata product in addition. Rave continues to be, and I think it's been mentioned a couple times this morning, Rave and EDC are really the lifeblood of this extension or this connection that I think Ryan and his team have been talking about so much today. EDC is the way that a lot of site data, as complex as they may be, end up finding their way into the hands of the pharma company who's doing the evaluation. And it's certainly the mechanism by which data get delivered to regulators. So that continues to be a core focus of what we're doing. But I think what we're going to get into in this talk, hopefully, is how much the world has changed since we were all thinking about, how do we take paper charts and how do we take paper submissions to the FDA and turn them into electronic submissions. We've just gone so much further beyond that, and I think, as has been stated multiple times, we're accelerating at a much faster rate than ever now. Next slide. So one of the key things that Medidata has tried to do over 26 years is develop a platform that is conducive to doing as many different aspects of clinical trial research work as possible. I know it's been said that the trials have become more complex. I think Dr. Califf did a great job highlighting how odd it is that the technology gets better and better and faster and more able to do things for us than ever before, and yet we're still slowing down in the speed with which we can conduct trials. And we really haven't done much about the 9 out of 10 failure rate that's been mentioned a few times already this morning. So, I think what we hope to do as a company is introduce new innovation, new technology that helps accelerate the answer to these questions, and then to go one step further, which is ultimately to help our pharma customers actually design trials that are geared to be successful at a much higher rate than 1 out of 10. Next slide, and maybe we'll skip this slide. Let me go to just 2 more quick slides here, and I'll hand it over to Andy. Over the last few years, Medidata has kind of rejiggered the way we're organized as a company away from the 35 different products that we offer, and we have built and offer all of you over time to drive you crazy in your day-to-day business. And we are now restructured as a set of 3 experiences, we call them. So we have a patient experience fundamentally focused on all the technology that a patient might hold in their hand during a trial to use either at home, wearable sensors, eCOA, eConsent, many of the tools that you all know patients know how to interoperate with themselves. The data experience is Rave and some of our RBQM technologies and many of the ecosystem technologies that have been mentioned a few times here this morning, where we, as Florence does, recognize that more and more our entire industry needs to operate as a joint ecosystem. And many of the products and capabilities in the data experience are targeted towards being a way for data to have throughput into a single place where you can realistically apply AI modeling or other types of newer technology to learn faster and to iterate faster on the data that you're collecting. And finally, the study experience, which I hope we can really get into in this conversation, is our vision of the future of what you all think of today as CTMS. And CTMS is obviously a critical part of the way we all manage trials, but we view the future of CTMS as much more as a shift left, kind of moving upstream, helping customers learn from all of the failed trials of the past and the successful trials of the past to design better trials and simulate those trials before we start dosing patients. And instead of just managing a trial as it's going, we hope to actually build the right kind of trials that are more geared for success from the start. So that's a quick overview on Medidata, and I'll go one more slide, which I think will be a good handoff to Andy's slides. It's been said over and over, you all live and breathe this every day. Trials are becoming more and more complex. Dr. Califf talked about I think 94% of data was his metric that never got looked at by the FDA. But I can tell you from my very first job out of college at Genentech in 1996, working with SCDM and many of the industry consortiums at the time, we started thinking about how do we collect less data on these trials. And we came up with things like data management plans and statistical plans and ways that we could justify everything in a protocol as really being necessary for the conduct of the study. And all that's happened since then, as we've collected more data, trials have become more complex, and I'll bet that 94% statistic holds pretty true across lots of different disease areas for lots of different regulatory bodies around the world. So, there is something that we need to do differently around changing. If we have to live with the growing and expanding complexity of trials, I think there's something we really have to look at doing differently, managing that complexity and finding a way to not let it slow the conduct of the overall program.
Thanks, Anthony. I'm thrilled to have Anthony's perspective as building the platform that spans both sites and sponsors, and the numbers that you put on the screen are testament to the scale that your business has been able to achieve. But that perspective wouldn't be complete unless we could get the point of view of the same technology from the other side with leaders like Andy. Andy, talk us through a little bit about how you think about managing technology at an important site like OneOncology. And we can go, I think, 3 slides forward to the first of, there we go. Whoop, one too many.
There we go. Let's see.
You're going to read every word on this slide, right?
This slide is a little bit of a day in the life of a CTO, but just to step back for a moment to answer.
Give us one slide back so we're not freaking out. There we go.
really are focused on the same goal, and that is to aggregate data to better answer questions. We're just in different phases of the care treatment cycle. But OneOncology is an MSO, that's a managed services organization. We do not acquire practices, but we partner with practices to ultimately try to bring them scale. And a lot of the thinking there is there's a lot of community oncology. It's where a majority of cancer patients are treated. And that community oncology continues to face more and more headwinds when it comes to reimbursement and other challenges. So they need partners. And at the end of the day, our health ecosystems needs competitors to lower prices and enable better access. So we partner with practices. We help them with their analytics, which is one of our core slides that we show our physician practices of what we would do for them for an analytics perspective. But we also help them with back office revenue cycle management. We implement Workday and help them with payroll. We do a lot of just kind of the blocking and tackling to make a practice far more competitive. This is just, for me, when we start to talk about what the technology strategy is for OneOncology, at our core, and most every health system at the core, is to aggregate data. And so we bring in data from our electronic medical record. We're partnered with Flatiron. I assume Flatiron folks are here today. We also work with a number of different genomic vendors, Tempus, Caris, Foundation Medicine, Garden, all feed data into our data warehouse. We obviously do a lot for our different practices, whether it's come from billing analysis. We work with Trillion Health. We ingest into our data warehouse over 5.8 billion claims a year just to give our practices transparency of here's what this academic medical center is being reimbursed, here's what you're being reimbursed, here's where we think we can fight for scale on your behalf. We work with SignalPath by Verily. We bring in all the clinical trial data that each of our practices are running through our, not an MSO, but an SMO, or site management organization, 1R, offers SignalPath and Florence out to all of our customers as part of the relationship with 1R. You can become a headline speaker if you become a customer of Florence, and I'm proof of that. The last one is Zeus Health is an interesting one. Catherine and Dr. Califf were talking or lamenting a little bit about how hard it is to get medical records. OncoEMR is a great example where they have deep, robust capabilities in chemotherapy and the clinical care for oncology patients. But a lot of times we struggle getting records from the community. If you're not part of the Epic ecosystem, it's really hard to get data out of referring partners, whether it's primary care providers that refer to you, whether it's surgeons, whether it's urologists. It really is hard to work with academic medical centers because Epic puts a lock a lot of their data. Zeus is another one that we partner with that through regulation like TEFCA will allow us to pull all data from patients, whether it's in an Epic, a Cerner, a Meditech. It's really through Commonwealth and Care Quality are these two large regulatory-backed data aggregators of this data that's allowing data to flow much better. And then lastly, we did an acquisition of Navigating Cancer. It's now called Navigating Care. It is our patient portal that we offer out to all of our practices as part of their membership with OneOncology, and that allows us to pick up patient-reported outcomes and survey data really from a day-to-day basis, not as part of a clinical trial. The only reason I show that is Databricks has been a great partner to us. Databricks is our data warehouse. They did a $1 billion acquisition a couple of years ago of Mosaic AI that now allows us to take all that structured and unstructured data, literally every record of our patients, plus all the ancillary record, and run it through large language models. So we have an interesting partnership with OpenAI that's allowed us to do some things on the abstraction front, allowed us to do some things on clinical trial matching, as well as kind of RCM AI analytics. The next slide. And this is a little bit of our AI strategy, but a major thing that is happening, at least in the majority of physician practices and hospitals, is this whole notion of you're going to go in and see your doctor, and hopefully this happens one day soon for you. But instead of them being on the screen and typing away on the electronic medical record, they're literally going to pull out their smartphone and they're going to hit the record button, and you and them are going to record the visit. I am an advocate of this strategy. I have a 14, 11, and a 9-year-old I'm always trying to get off the screen. And so I'm always fighting with them to get them off the screen. And the last thing I want to do is go see my doctor and have them be on the screen as well. And so this technology allows them to be totally removed from the screen. I think it's pretty interesting. They record the visit. The AI then summarizes it. If the doctor and the patient talk about, youth sports, that whole bit about youth sports is eliminated from the record, and the whole summary is put there. But you have this kind of human in the loop now that the AI is basically doing all the documentation, and the physician is approving it. I think it has interesting implications on 21 CFR Part 11. And the more, if you think about this, voice is going to become the predominant way that I think care gets delivered in our hospitals as opposed to the screen. So I think right now we're obviously recording the visit, but when orders need to happen and medication need to happen, there's no reason for the doctor then to have to turn to the EMR and actually order the meds. They should be able to do all that via voice. So ideally in a day, in a future, they won't actually come in and have to put down their smartphone and hit the record button. All the rooms will be equipped with the right recording devices that will allow all these discussions to happen. My father was in the ICU in August. We were struggling with a diagnosis, and we had 4, 5, 6 different specialists visit us on a certain Monday. And each time I was taking feverish notes of like, what did he say? What was he know? And trying to merge up this record of where all these different specialists had come in and said, hey, it might be this, it might be that, it might be this other thing. And all I wanted was really a recorder in the room just to record everything, an AI summary to output from each of those specialists, and then the ability to kind of merge all 3, 4, 5 of those visits and say, hey, AI, what do you think it is? And see if we could take the intelligence of what these unique visits were, what these siloed visits were, but leverage the power of AI to get to kind of one common diagnosis. I'm confident we're going to get there, and I'm confident the health systems are going to push us that way. Next slide. So again, I've spent the past 4 years at OneOncology trying to aggregate data. You've spent at Medidata. I mean, the whole goal is to aggregate data. And then the idea is, well, how do we actually get it to use? And so one of the things that we also offer are practices, which I think is going to become more of this whole co-pilot strategy, is we built out the Chrome extension. Where we originally did this was predominantly for the notion of precision therapy, of getting more and more patients onto precision therapies, which we know have a better benefit in terms of survival and outcomes. And so by taking the data from OncoEMR, taking the data from our genomic providers, we now place a Chrome extension. We authenticate through Smart on Fire, a standard which helps a lot in enabling us to get the appropriate authentication. But now we get messages for different notifications, whether it's a clinical trial notification, whether it's a precision therapy opportunity, whether it's, hey, you may just have an opportunity to test this patient for germline testing. All of those happen within this Chrome extension. Where I kind of see this going is the whole notion of a co-pilot. So while today it's a great area for notifications, it may become the area of how we work with metadata in the future, or how we work with other areas where a robot would come in and actually go execute a task for you. So if you wanted to send data up to a metadata EDC, potentially it could do that. You could be human in the loop. So I'm bullish on the whole on the whole concept of co-pilot. I was in San Francisco. I took a Waymo. I assume they're coming to Atlanta if they're not already here. And the first thing that I thought was so cool was, hey, I got into the Waymo. There was no taxi driver, which was nice. I like the smell and I like the music. And I got from actually Databricks headquarters to my hotel. And I was kind of amazed at the whole process of how it happens. But then I sat back and I said, it took Waymo a long time to get here. It probably took them in the 20 to 30 to 40 billions of dollars to get to an unsupervised taxi. And where we are, at least today, as we're trying to get AI more into clinical trial and practice, is I believe that we are in the co-pilot mode. So we're not going to replace humans, but we want to make these humans 50x more efficient. And so a lot of what we're thinking through here with this Chrome extension is not only to deliver better care and better notifications to our clinicians, but then how do we make all these different types of users, whether it's a an APP, whether it's a data analyst, whether it's any type of user of the EMR, how do we connect it to the ecosystem and allow them to be co-pilots where they're not necessarily doing the work, but they're orchestrating the work? So we're real bullish about what we're doing there. Yep.
Oh, I was winding you up. Do you have more remarks?
Well, I think there's a couple more slides, but
okay.
I mean, it's all just our tech strategy. We're doing a lot in clinical trial matching. Obviously, AI is kind of the silver bullet that we've been waiting for clinical trial matching. The curating eligibility criteria and doing it at a volume to which you could actually have a site network, and the size of the menu was really challenging. So we're super excited about what we're doing with clinical trial matching. Next slide. And then lastly, this is just kind of the next slide is kind of the framework for which I look at digitization. And so some of our partners, whether it's our analytics stack, whether it's Florence, whether it's Verily, whether it's Flatiron, this is everything that is taken to us to get to digitization. And I could take this to some of our users and I say, look at everything we've done to digitize. And they would still look at me and go, it's incredibly manual. So we're only, a certain part of the way there, but at least with the foundation of the data, hopefully AI and this co-pilot concept can take us a lot farther.
Thanks, Andy. Towards the end of your remarks, you mentioned your goal of making humans 50 times more efficient. I think the three of us share that goal, although we're working with different tool sets in order to get there. Even though we're working with different tool sets, we're working on an operations tool set that spans multiple site networks. You're focused on a particular site network. Anthony, you're focused on the data layer. What's common between the three of us is that we believe in open ecosystems. And so maybe I could start with you, Andy, and then we'll go to Anthony. You could have had a slide there that had one big vendor. It could have been Epic. It could have been any one, a handful of those logos where you would have encouraged them to be the only platform for all the capabilities you wanted to deliver to your end users. Why didn't you do that?
Yeah, I don't want to bash Epic too hard, but the reality is community oncology gets reimbursed about a third of what academic medical centers and nonprofits do. So, and they're typically small businesses. They're typically, if you want to know who's running the billing, it's usually either the husband or the wife of the main physician partner. So they're in a lot of ways mom and pop. We're trying to scale them. Epic, the way that they are going to price out their solutions has basically been cost prohibitive for some of these practices. So you've had folks like Flatiron emerge that can offer a very cost-effective product, but also a high-quality EMR solution that really is niche-driven in terms of solving a lot of the different workflows, and that's 100% where they're going to be focused. To go to a single solution, I think would mean that we would either move slower or that we would not be able to solve some of the problems that we're trying to solve. And, so that unbundling and letting partners do what they do best has at least gotten us where we are today, and I'm hopeful it'll take us where we want to go in the future.
Thanks. Anthony, what's your point of view about where singular platforms are appropriate versus ecosystems appropriate?
I mean, appropriate's one way to think about it, but I think there's just the reality is that unless you have a government mandated single system, which some countries do, it's not realistic. We're not going to see it. I think especially not in this country. I think the innovation is good. I would love if everybody used Medidata for everything, but the innovation, the competition, the other vendors, they sort of keep everything moving. And there's niche providers, as Andy pointed out. I'm not saying Flatiron's a niche provider, but there's lots of sites that don't want to use Epic. There's lots of sites that don't want to use Rave. There's lots of sites that use kind of self-serve, build-it-yourself, very simple trial EDC tools at a price point that we would be very challenged to compete at. So I think, the way we've thought about this over the last several years, as the usage of technology becomes more ubiquitous and many more players enter the market all the time. I mean, I would bet the people in this room have seen a 10x explosion, even since COVID, I would guess, on the number of different technologies that are introduced, because every startup that has something cool and can sell one pharma on it, and that pharma does one trial at your site, now that's your technology, and you've got to figure out how to use it, whether it's scalable or not, and whether you're seeing it from any other sponsor or not. But those things are good generally for inspiring better and I would say more fruitful competition to bring everybody forward faster, if you build an ecosystem that allows these tools to interoperate. And my guess is that the frustration for a lot of people in the room here today, and certainly many of the other sites that we work with all the time, is that the way to connect these tools just is the part that's missing. You get a lot of different tools that aren't at scale. You have to run them differently on different trials for different sponsors. And there isn't the interoperability. There isn't the connectivity. There isn't the simple stuff like single sign-on. Like, there aren't ways to make these things into an ecosystem so that if you wanted to put the smart kind of AI tools that Andy's mentioning on top, or that we're trying to put on top of Medidata, you can't do it because there isn't an ecosystem at play.
So first connectivity and then intelligence after the connectivity. Although I guess, Andy, you're using Databricks, which is an AI-powered warehouse tool, as your connectivity layer too. So maybe part of the question is, how can other stakeholders in our industry connect up apps that don't have someone like you and your team on staff?
Yeah, I mean, I think at the end of the day, you do have to have, if you don't go with the single vendor and you have the Epic approach, which has been super successful for them and super successful for a lot of health systems, you still have to come back to kind of this best of core mentality. So, hey, I'm going to anchor on this vendor, I'm going to anchor on this vendor, I'm going to anchor on this vendor. And then because I've only anchored on 3 or 4 vendors, I'm going to specifically work with those vendors to say, this is how I want you to connect, and be really prescriptive on how you want, where their lane is, where it begins and where it ends, and really be forceful on, this is how our vision comes together and this is how we do it. And I kind of did that with that last page of that framework of, like, this is where I need you guys to be successful, and then join the customer advisory boards and really push on them to continue to develop out where you see them, you want them to go as well.
So the horror stories that we know are a site onboarding a new study and realizing they have 8 to 10 new platforms that ride along in a stack with this new study. Maybe half of those platforms are part of the ecosystem that the site set up, and half of those platforms are riding along from the sponsor. And here on stage, we have 3 reasonably competent and good-looking individuals, with Anthony, running the largest data platform in life science, with, I think I would say, aspirational, Florence is the leading operational platform for studies in life science. And then we have Andy, who's a very sophisticated site operations executive and IT leader. Why can't we get out of our own way? Why does that still happen? Too many technologies that don't talk to each other. Study timelines are longer than other. What's your theory on why we can't get out of our own way with new technology?
One of the things I'm seeing that evolve, and at least at OneOncology, we unfortunately put that technology to use first on revenue cycle. We got to get paid first before we put it towards research. Has been this whole notion of robotic process automation. It's somewhat of a legacy tech. There's Automation Anywhere, there's UiPath that have done it, but they've done it in a very brittle manner, meaning they can control a mouse that'll come in and click on the screen, and you can tell the robot, hey, go click on pixel 400 by 1200 and hit that submit button. But if for whatever reason we wake up on Monday morning and that submit button got moved to the bottom left corner, like, the whole robot breaks. And so now what we're seeing is the emergence of this RPA technology that has
What's that?
Robotic process automation. So we're seeing the emergence of this robot that now has the power of an LLM. So the robot no longer has to be told, go click on this pixel or go click on this form. you can just tell the robot, go find the submit button.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the things we're doing in the prior authorization space right now is we have these robots that are embedded with LLMs that can actually read the medical record and make decisions on where to go click in the payer portal. So there's so much friction in just getting paid from a community oncology office that we have to go get prior authorization. We have to do that in individual little payer portals. So everyone here at research, I think, always laments the last mile problem and that every protocol is uniquely different. But what we are seeing emerge is this whole co-pilot concept that I was kind of referencing earlier, and the idea that now I have robots that are smart enough to not just click a button and know where to click on the screen, but they actually can read the content and make decisions, that I think we can start to glue some of these pieces together, even if there are 2, 3, 4, 5 different systems.
I think I get it. So we spend a lot of time, if you go next door, and please do, we have a lot of our partners in the hall next door, and we've spent a lot of energy setting up integrations with those partners in the various Florence applications. And there's some brittleness in how you design the integration. Well, when this button gets clicked, what do you want to have happen? It's got to do that every time. And there's some brittleness in how a site might decide to interact with that, or an end user might decide to interact with that. That could break, or our software could change, or their software could change. And so I think what you're getting at is that one of the reasons we've been in our own way is because software integration is hard and brittle. And you're an optimist with the impact that AI can have, because AI is not hard and brittle. It's flexible and reactive.
Yeah.
And maybe that'll finally help collapse down this stack of finicky applications. What do you think, Anthony?
Yeah, no, I agree with that. And I think it's, Andy mentioned the last mile, but I would propose that it's a lot more miles than just the last one, right? Because there's a lot of pharma decision making about which vendor.
I'm glad you went there.
Which vendors, and let's switch vendors, and we decided to change our CRO, and our CRO has a whole suite of vendors, and they change their vendors every so often, and so you can sort of build this quagmire of different technologies, and you can have a willingness between vendors, and oftentimes you do, to work together, but then you create this brittle nature of those integrations because they haven't been driven by robots. They've been driven by people who spend a year, probably longer than your trial's going to run with those two vendors, is the timeline that it took those two vendors to figure out how to do an integration that, even though it's done, is still very brittle.
Yes.
And then we're all innovating as fast as we can, right? So you are breaking the brittle stuff quickly, because you're going to do, Medidata is going to do, I don't know, 300 or 400 software releases this year, right? Just all the time across all the different products. We've had for years a set of open APIs, and people just integrate with us without us even knowing it, because we've tried to make that a possibility. But that doesn't mean that things don't break when we make a change. Someone else has to go make a change. You get a change management, a downstream effect from that. So it's complicated. There's a lot of choice, starting with pharma, and then moving on to, I think where we're hopefully going to be headed over the next few years is that with the acceleration of AI, and I think everyone in this room is seeing it, we probably don't have to sell you on how fast things are moving right now, but you aren't going to get the value of the AI sitting on top of stuff unless the stuff is good. Like, the AI is useless if it isn't sitting on top of high quality, highly integrated, clean data that AI modeling can learn from to give you an answer that makes sense and that actually helps you. So you have to get to the point where, somewhere in this mess of vendor choice, integrations, robots doing the integrations faster, everybody figuring out how to work better with Epic, and so on and so forth, these things have to come together to create what is sort of the bedrock of what the AI is going to magically do. And the magic's not there if you don't lay the bedrock in the right way first.
One of the ways you and Medidata have been thinking about changing the bedrock is in the 3 product groups, families that you architected your solutions around. You have Patient Cloud, which is different than I think a lot of us who are steeped in clinical operations think about think about running research. Yes, there was a flare-up of DCTs around the pandemic, but can you tell me a little bit about that part of your equation about going directly to patients and what that means for this sort of discussion? How does that impact tech that's hard or easier to use, that's integrated, that's open ecosystem versus closed ecosystem? Those sorts of things when you're not talking about a coordinator in front of Rave, but instead a patient in front of an app.
Yeah. I mean, it's a huge difference, and I think it's another way that that the technology that we all hold in our pockets all the time now has really started to influence our industry. I think in a positive way is we just can't build anymore the kind of shitty stuff that we've always forced this industry to use. I mean, the things that you guys rolled out this morning in these videos is gorgeous. Like, that's beautiful, consumer-ready. That's a nice user interface. You have the kind of tools and filters and navigation that you would expect to see on any app that you're going to pull out every day and use. And I think, the mind shift that somebody joked earlier about how we talk about we talk about being patient-centric, but that's sort of the last thing that we are as an industry in a lot of ways. And at Medidata, we decided a long time ago that if you wanted to move closer to the patient as the source of data in their real life, not just a DCT, but any kind of outside of a site visit data capture moment that might happen, and we expect there to be more and more and more of those as time goes on, you have to put technology in front of that patient that looks and feels and creates the kind of engagement from them, maybe not TikTok level engagement, but the kind of engagement that they get from the 100 other apps on their phone that they use every day all the time. And if you don't create that, if you use a 10-year-old eCOA tool to collect eCOA from a patient, or even more broadly, lots of decentralized trial data from a patient today, you're going to lose engagement. And if you lose engagement, you've lost all the benefit of trying to move outside of a site visit and into kind of the patient's real day-to-day experience, which is where we think the bulk of the learning can really happen about how the drug is working or not working. So, Patient Cloud was an effort to distinguish between the types of technology that would be appropriate site-facing and sponsor-facing, and the types of technology that would be appropriate to be patient-facing. And we put a huge amount of effort into that business in the last 10 years or so.
Awesomely helpful. I have a story to tell, but first I want both of you to think about perverse decision-making either at sites or sponsors and why they're so risk-averse. The story I wanted to riff off of Anthony's is our first large site customer is OneOncology back in 2017, and they were using a green screen technology, like at the airport, mashing the clacky keypads in order to generate documents for study startup. And so, in a sense, all we did is we came in with a consumer-grade technology that was actually easy to use and see and adopt, and replace this technology from the 1980s that was horrible. And unfortunately, there's not a lot of that perspective still in the new applications that are getting created. Clinical research is so hard. It's so hard to hit the mandate of functionality that we often leave the user experience behind. So I think one of the ways we get in our own way is not putting the right level of polish on things that are either for patients, as you describe, Anthony, or that get put in front of the people doing the work, the coordinators and the investigators and the project managers at sites. And so I hope this audience will continue to hold the three of us at a high standard, because it should be just as delightful to use an app that can enroll a patient as it is using an app to make a dinner reservation. So how do sites and sponsors make perverse decisions, and how can we avoid those to get better technology out in front of end users? Do you have any experience with perverse decisions, Andy Corts?
Yeah, for sure. The whole EDC paradigm, to me, to a certain extent,
is this where you kick Anthony in the knee?
This is a kick. Okay,
but let's
the whole paradigm, I mean, at the end of the day, I see Medidata as a research data warehouse. The paradigm of my site, I don't choose Medidata, the sponsor does. if I go to the sponsor and say, hey, would you consider X, Y, and Z, or do you want to do something innovative? Most of the times they would say, yes, we do, but not with this molecule. Because nobody wants to take a risk if they have a really successful breakthrough drug on a different technology because it's tried and true. And so really the site doesn't have a lot of decision making in the whole process. We can try to innovate. We're doing things with EHR to EDC. But at the end of the day, the innovation that we're seeing with some of the cloud data warehouses like Snowflake, Databricks, I mean, I will give an example of last week, Databricks, Snowflake, they have this open standard called Delta sharing, where I can write 10 lines of code and share data between the two platforms. And we had consultants come up that wanted to do some analytics for us. They wanted our data out of it. It was going to take some of my analytics guys a long time to get all these tables ready. And we just said, well, do you accept Delta sharing? And literally overnight, we sent them all the data that they need. I would much rather hire a data engineer at OneOncology than another data analyst to do data entry. And so I just think the more, I think the sponsors aren't going to push innovation because at the end of the day, they want clean data, loaded with integrity, everything that they need to defend themselves at the FDA. But I'd love to see our two organizations figure out a better mechanism to share data. How can we leverage AI to necessarily clean and validate the data? And maybe it's a co-pilot function as well, but I do think the technology organizations have to come forward and do it in such a way that the sponsors will allow it to happen.
That's it. Anthony, I'd love you to comment on that. You know, this topic is, I guess, generally speaking, data liquidity. And where do you see data going into Rave and coming out of Rave and new waves in the future?
Yeah, I mean, I think that first of all, we've mentioned Epic a few times, and it's it's fun to kick Epic in the teeth. I mean, right before you kick Medidata in the teeth, you kicked Epic in the teeth. And we do it too. But there's a ton of data in Epic, and what we've done over the last few years, thanks to TEFCA and some of the other mechanisms that you mentioned, and let's not forget some legislation, thanks to some legislation that gives patients control of their own medical record, and they have the right to sort of use it and transport it and make it usable. So there's a patient movement here that I know we probably don't have time to get into, but that I think is really going to change the way we all think about the use of AI. But what Medidata has done, similarly to I think some of the things Andy was talking about, is we've just partnered by moving Rave into Epic and by using mechanisms like legislation and TEFCA to move EHR data into Rave. And that makes a huge difference to sites. Sites can be working in Epic. Rave is just sitting there in the background unbeknownst to them, and with a click of a button, they can populate an entire Rave CRF out of the data that are in Epic. Does it still have to be source verified based on risk? Yes. Do we still need CRAs? Yes. Is there still going to be some analytics and reporting and hopefully AI that finds the anomalies and runs the edit checks and fix the queries, and all those things still have to happen, but it's getting more streamlined. It's not because we sat down with Epic and said, hey, you guys are doing a lot of stuff, we're doing a lot of stuff, let's partner. It's because there have just been enough other technological advancements and legislation that allow us to just sort of make this stuff happen now and create an ecosystem, maybe a little bit by force, compared to a traditional kind of handshake across the table or whatever. But Epic doesn't want to do those kind of handshakes. And so there's other ways to do it. And I think we're starting to see some of that evolve, in lots of different parts of the industry.
Heck yeah. Let me bring it to a close, because I think with that remark, we had 3 corners of the triangle established. One is, in Florence's little corner of the world, we make an effort to create consumer-grade software that's a delight to use. It's easy to use, and therefore, it's not yet another tool. From your perspective, Anthony, you just articulated so nicely the idea of user empowerment and getting the participants in the study empowered in creating connections and creating data liquidity that allows intelligence to come from that part of the network. So not just sponsors and sites, but consumers and legislation as well. And then Andy, you shared optimism around AI to do the connecting. Once we lay the groundwork of the basic tools, we now have flexible models that don't freak out when we don't have the gazintas and the gazatas set just right. Does that sound right to you all? I'd love for you all to join me in a round of applause to thank Andy and Anthony. Speakers are finding the way to stage left. We got one more surprise for you that gives a little bit of a glimpse into how we make the magic happen at Research Revolution, and then you'll get your marching orders from Chad Garrett, our Chief Commercial Officer.
Is the mic on?
Hey, Ryan. Is this your typical morning routine?
You're early. Well, revolutionizing clinical research does take a little bit of Zen. Come on, let me show you.
We just saw that Florence is turning 11 this year. How does that make you feel?
It feels like we're just getting started.
Can you take us back to 2014? What was the inspiration behind Florence?
Well, the life science industry spends billions of dollars on helping get studies done, and sites were left out in the cold.
So, how many sites is Florence working with now?
Well, we're working with 65,000 sites as of October 2025 across 90 countries.
Well, that's pretty neat. Proudest moment at Florence?
It's hard to narrow them down. I mean, we were lucky to help during the pandemic in working on vaccines that are now helping billions of people. And during the Ukrainian conflict, we helped ensure cancer treatments got to oncology clinical trial patients that wouldn't have had another recourse. But maybe for me, it's the fact that all 250 of us get to show up every day, helping new cures get to market that helps our families and yours.
Hey,
oh,
Ryan.
hey.
Thoughts on a petting zoo at Research Revolution?
The logistics of that are going to be challenging.
I'll work on it.
Thanks. Okay, well, let's see if we can find Andres. I know he's around here somewhere.
Is that him?
Oh. Hey, Andres.
Hey.
I think it's time for your part of the interview.
Amazing. Coming in.
We heard you've been on the tech side for quite some time. What's harder, writing code or keeping up with compliance?
Code, but compliance keeps me honest.
Any sneak peeks that we can look forward to from Florence in the future?
Most definitely. We've been working with AI. 2 years ago, AI changed the landscape in the industry, and now it's accessible to everybody. And it opened the floodgates of opportunities. And we're working on how we bring those opportunities to the clinical research field and to help everybody that is here today.
What's the craziest story you've heard while working in clinical research?
Oh, that's not for me. That's for Catherine. And by the way, she's coming from her mid-morning coffee, so let's ask her.
Hey, Catherine.
What's up, Courtney?
I'm doing pretty good. How many cups of coffee are you on?
Like in total or just since lunch?
Like all day.
I do believe this is number 5.
Meeting in 5. Got it. Man, are you the busiest person in here?
I mean, I like to think so, but it's probably a toss-up between me or Ryan, except Ryan meditates and I'm not medicated, so I think I have the edge.
Speaking of the edge, Andres was saying that you used to work with research sites. What was that like?
So it was kind of like that old novel, A Tale of Two Cities. It was the best of times, the worst of times, but with less orphans. You get the vibe.
So the conference coming up, right? What's the theme for this year?
It is relax and recharge. So, yoga, sound baths, maybe goats. I don't know. But I'll see you there. I gotta go to this meeting.
Oh, all right. See you
ya.
soon.